to have us review the agenda, please? Any addition, changes? Hearing none, may I have, I'm sorry. I would say this, anything with my name on it, please take it off.
Can we move the last item, the letter up? We do have Joseph here that's also going to join me in regarding the letter.
We certainly can. Can you make that adjustment for me, please, Latasha?
I'm sorry, what was the adjustment? I apologize.
Move a letter up from the bottom.
Move a letter up?
The last item, Latasha, if we could move it up in the agenda.
Oh, 16? I mean, 15?
15, that's correct.
Let's see if this will work for me this week.
I got all kind of stuff popping up on my screen. I have no idea what it is.
I can't move it up. My Adobe is not working at the moment. So I will make a mental note. Where are we moving it to? Number, what number, is it number 3?
Just hold on a minute, Latasha. She suggested moving it up. Let's see what else we have on here. CDMA, I'm sure I have somebody here for that. So I don't want to put somebody there. Hold on, please. Peace Park. I can put it right there.
We've got people here for the Peace Park as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
we got people here for Peace Park. Go all the way to the top and take me down again, Latasha. Stormwater management. Do you have anybody there with you, Luke? Luke?
Yeah, we do. We have Neil from LID. They're LID's.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Can we go
down
after
3,
Peace
go
Park?
down 4, go down 5. Excuse me. All right, let's go to 6. I'm throwing 6 out, so put it right there, please.
Thank you so much.
All right, so everybody knows, even though she can't move it, we're going to do the letter at item number 6. All right, anything else need to come on or go off this agenda? Hearing nothing, may I get a motion? I'm sorry, I went too fast. Who did I hear? Hearing no one, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Brian cannot move this by himself. I need to hear 2 more people.
I had an eye.
Aye.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you. We now have an agenda. Thank you so very much. Let's go with stormwater management plan, Luke.
Okay. So I think it was the summer of 2018, maybe, I presented sort of a short, medium, long-term plan on stormwater management. And we all, it was a shared interest, I think, of everybody here. And I think that with the most recent flooding that we had over the last year, that, 4 inches in 45 minutes or whatever it was, sort of brought to light the fact that these events are going to be more frequent with climate change. And stormwater management isn't just a neat policy thing. It really can affect your property and your home. And so the city has been seeking grants to help on this front. We've been good at getting grants for bioretention, going back to the councils before my time, the bioretention along Buchanan. And now, since Lean and I have been on here and Scott, we've been doing a good job of getting grants for bioretention in some other parts of the city. And one grant we got was to help the city develop an eventual stormwater master plan. And so who we have here tonight is LID Center, who's been working with Public Works on that plan. And right now the plan is focused along the Dooling Creek watershed, so the south side of the city here. And I'm just going to sort of pass it over to Neil, who LID has been working with Public Works, reviewing our stormwater infrastructure, and then they attended a Green Team meeting last Monday night to hear from the community about their issues with stormwater management. So I'm going to turn it over to Neil now, who can take it away from me and talk a bit more about this.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Can someone bring up the PowerPoint or give me share that we have done? We sent in. There you go. Perfect. All right. Is someone going to be able to I'll just say next screen if that's okay, unless you give me control.
That's fine. Next screen is fine.
Okay, so thank you very much and appreciate your time. I know everybody's busy and we're getting ready for the next snowstorm here. If you don't believe in climate change, it wouldn't be a good time to go down to Galveston or Houston right now because of all the snow. We might get more snow than we do. And Luke gave a good background to this. We did a stormwater. We came up with some different ways to do green infrastructure throughout the city. And as you know, the last couple of years, we've had some major rainfall events, and it seems like every week there's a big flood or a big new event. And so we're trying to address that. Communities all across the country are trying to look at their existing infrastructure and see where the vulnerability is and come up with some solutions. And that's what this grant is about. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through these pretty quick. The objectives of the grant, some initial findings, some of the modeling that we did, and some of the next steps. Next, please. Our objectives, one, we wanted to look at the existing storm drain system and analyze it and look at how well it's performing, determine the potential effects of climate change on the drainage systems, evaluate green infrastructure mitigation solutions, and make a case for green infrastructure as part of climate adaptation. I'm pretty sure most everybody in this meeting knows about green infrastructure and has some basic knowledge, but if anybody has any questions, just please put that up and we can discuss that. This is out of a study of Washington, D.C. that on their climate action plan. And this slide just shows, if you see here where it says 1981 over to the left, that's our existing period of record of how many days usually get more than an inch in precipitation in a year. And I mean, in a day, how many days? And from the 80s to about 2000, it ran about 10 times a year you'd have that kind of a storm event. And what's happening, you can see from these other bars, are these based on climate models, how many more times? So over through 2034, hopefully we'll all be here. It's going to go up about 25 or 30% more times is the projection. And this is one of the troubles we have in looking at the effects of stormwater and rainfall, is that previously we've been using everything out of the period of record and statistically making it projections about what's a 100-year storm or a 10-year storm or whatever event we want to use and the probability. The future, we don't have any information, so we can only do projections about the rainfall. Next slide, please. So Mount Rainier, and this is off of the pattern book, which I think is an excellent document. Most of Mount Rainier really developed around 1910 to the 1930s, into the 30s, where most of the development came, most of the residential development in the city. And about 1920 is when you first started to see the storm drain system get built. And, up to this time, really, much of the way that we size storm drain systems was anecdotal or by observation, especially in smaller systems like Mount Rainier has running through its smaller pipe systems. Next slide. So our area of focus, because of some budget and time constraints, we're focusing really on Dueling Creek. And Dueling Creek is, you can see, is the area in pink, and that's our study area. And that encompasses about a third of Mount Rainier. Next slide, please. Then Dueling Creek area, the study area we looked at, that's in yellow. You can see the buildings, which are probably about 80% residential. some commercial, some apartment style, and then you can see the kind of highlighting the amount of roads and roofs, and that really is the big driver in most of the runoff from the storms. Next slide, please. But we're also kind of really lucky. Mount Rainier's got a really good, really well-established tree canopy. I know everybody always wants more trees, but compared to a lot of places, it's got pretty good coverage, but there's still some potential areas where we could look at using more planting, and there's efforts, I know, to look at tree planting in the city. So there are opportunities for some types of green infrastructure within the watershed. Next slide, please. People are also, you can see they're also part of the rain check rebate program participation. And you can see it's pretty well spread through the city through where the private homeowners are, but there's a couple dozen homes through there, which is pretty good. Just everybody should remember it's a great program, and if you have questions about it, please send it to us and we will get you some more information back to you. Next slide, please. So Mount Rainier, the storm drain system, while it was being built and adjacent to all the development, was really managed by the Washington Suburban Sanitation Commission, except to about 1987. All the storm drains supposedly went over to the county to manage and maintain. And there is one part of Route 1, the state highway maintains, the state system maintains its own system and manages it and sizes its own system. And that's the bright red you see in the lower right-hand corner of the slide. And it kind of runs at about a 45-degree angle off the sheet. You can see those little red triangles. And the rest is really supposedly maintained by the county. So in Mount Rainier, you have Public Works maintains the streets, while this drainage system that's accepted into the county system is maintained by the County Department of Public Works. Slide. There's also some localized flooding. So not everything in the flood is in the 100-year floodplain. And the 100-year floodplain is essentially where you have about a 1% chance of being flooded during the year. And there's the 500-year floodplain, which is about a 0.2%, a very low likelihood of flooding. And you can see where that exists, that orange area and the blue area are up by the Arundel Street and the Arundel Canal, where the levee is being currently built right now, built up. And you can see the drainage complaints. There are a few in the study area, but mostly are just a little bit north, draining the other way. And we'll talk more about mapping the areas that are flooded a little bit. Next slide, please. So the first part of this grant was to look and see where we could look at the drainage system and what condition it was. And there's a reason why some of these drains are backing up. And you can see here the field photos of the storm drain system. You can see the pipe is on the right. That's about a 15 to 80-inch pipe, a small pipe going through a manhole. And you can see why water doesn't get in this inlet. It's completely filled with dirt. So in this study, we found that about 20% of the structures, we don't know if they were maintained or abandoned because they were paved over or were abandoned. About half of the structures, meaning the inlets, the manholes where pipes join together, or the end walls where the pipes empty out, had some structural or maintenance issue. And this causes some of the flooding. If the system doesn't have capacity, this is what's going to happen. You have this flooding. And so that's an important thing that we're going to talk about as far as results of the study. Is there any questions that anyone has? Great. So we just have a few slides left. So what we did is we used a dynamic stormwater model called SWIM. You don't really have to, we're not going to go into the mechanics of that, but it lets you simulate actual rainfall events rather than just lumping it all together and say we have to, how much flow we have. It can tell you anytime during the event the capacity of the system. And we're going to focus on the system in blue. And essentially, by Dooling Creek and down by Colmar Manor is on the right. And that's where these two systems join through the Dooling Creek, that make up the Dooling Creek watershed. And then this other, on the blue line that kind of goes crooked from right to left is this storm drain system that goes from about a 4-foot wide, 4-foot diameter storm drain system up to small 15-inch pipes that are located up towards the northern part of the watershed. Next slide, please. So when we do a profile of that, this is going up that hill. So over to the right is Dooling Creek, and over to the left is up around 31st Street, about 4 or 5 blocks up. And thanks. Somebody's got their music on.
Hello.
Hey, baby, how you doing?
Can you cut your door and get these shoulders in the board? I gotta go to Crystal City.
Mayor Miles, you are not muted.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
love the
Excuse
Law and
me.
Order ringtone, though.
Excuse me really quick. I'm sorry, because there are several people who are unmuted, and I'm muting people, and I don't want to mute our speaker.
And I use a ring light.
Where's our speaker go? It's Neil. Okay, Neil. I just want to make sure I didn't unmute you. I needed to see your name. Okay. Okay, Neil, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Is that a bird or a dog making the squeaky noise? I've never been booed by a bird before.
I apologize. That was my dog.
Okay. That's okay. Mine are upstairs. Just waiting for them. So you can see here, this system, when you have a rainfall event, this is currently in the 10-year, this is up those red dots. You can see where it's blue. That means the pipe is completely filled, or the channel is completely filled. And where those white kind of vertical boxes are, those are the manholes or the inlets where the water gets into the system. And those red dots are where it overflows. So what this is telling you is that the capacity of the system is too small, probably up near the end of the system, and it's probably overflowing and causing some localized flooding. Whereas all the way over to the right, you can see where that blue hits the ground. Right there is the system is just about ready to flood. Next slide, please. So what we do is when we look at climate change, we run a bunch of different storm events. So we run storm events that are much more intensive, much more volume in a shorter period of time, just like the rainfall that we've been having. You know, it used to be that it would drizzle for a while, and then all of a sudden you would get a slow and steady increase in the rain, you know, except it was a hurricane or something like that in a normal rainstorm event. Then you get a big slug of rain, and then it kind of calms down. But now what's happening with a lot of the rainfall patterns is everything just dumps at once. You know, within an hour, you might get 3 or 4 inches or 2 inches of rainfall. And those happen more and more frequently. So what we did is to look at future scenarios. A way to do this is run different storms and then run a increase. And we took a 25% increase in the 10-year 24-hour storm event, which is the event that is used to size these systems. And now we're also getting, besides up near the top, we're getting more and more, it's really getting close to the edge. More of those like little inlets and stuff are backing up. You can see over to the left where the water, that blue is at the top of the filled with boxes. And it also floods down near the bottom. You can see where the red dot is. Next slide, please. And so that's the water that goes across people's yards. It gets in their basements. Flows and floods the streets. There you go. Next slide, please. So we're writing up the final results. We had a meeting with the green team the other week, and they pointed out some areas where there was flooding, you know, like down by 31st Street by the truck rental place and that alley behind, where 31st is really an alley in the back. And that's because the system is just way too small through there. So we'd have to do some mitigation, probably some gray infrastructure mitigation. So some of the takeaways that we found, maintenance is really critical, and cleaning up pipes and inlets. And I know Kurosh does that, but the county really is responsible for doing that. And that's maybe having some more communication on getting them to do that. And then, especially up in the critical areas, this model that we're running is more at a screening level, and it's just telling us where we project problems to be. And you might need to do some additional studies there to figure out if it's better to upsize the system or to put some additional green infrastructure with BMPs. So the next step for us is to identify some project opportunities that could be some meaningful, that can help some of the inlets convey the water along, and complete the report and the recommendations. And we just had the community feedback. One thing that people can do is that, instead of, not everybody knows about dialing 311 and reporting it. So maybe as a recommendation that it's important for citizens to kind of come up and make sure that they're documenting where the issues are, so we can see, I'm sure the people, there's 10 or 12 dots on that other slide, and I'm sure there's more drainage complaints than that. So being more proactive about that would be good. And so that's similar to this CoSmart program. So that might be something that the Green Team would undertake. I think that is my last slide. Yes, it is. So hopefully we've kind of conveyed where we are at. And if there are any questions, please, direct them to Luke, or so you can give them to Kurosh, and we can address some of those things, since we're probably winding down this study at the end of next month.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
One of the things that they're telling me today, and I only have the question because I've never flooded in the, I guess since 1985, the president had no flooding, none of that craziness.
Right.
They started messing with this levee over here. They blocked, I think, all of my drains. They've cut down all of my trees. And the day when I thought I was having plumbing and other kind of issues, they find out that there's a whole river running down the side of my house. I mean, the water level is so high that you can walk outside and look at it now. It doesn't even have to rain. You just walk out there and the water's there. Is that part of what you're looking at? Will something like my yard be looked at? And I know this is personal, as opposed to whether it covers the entire city. But the thought that ran through my head today was, when I walked downstairs and saw this water coming into my house, my question was, excuse me, I wonder how many other people's houses are going through this, because they claim that Mount Rainier sits on a lot of little lakes and ponds and streams and all of this other stuff, and that the water levels are now so high that we're going to always have water unless we figure out where the water's going to go.
Yeah, so the study, we're really focusing on the areas around the drains and the inlets, and then the public space, places that can be controlled. And then within that watershed. So I think your house is probably.
So I'm entirely too far up for the study.
Yeah, you're over the hill.
I'm over the hill by this levee.
Yeah.
So I need to I need a study done over here.
Well, I think you need someone to come look at it. That to me is important information, because groundwater effects, a lot of these things, like you said, you get higher groundwater levels over the last couple of years in some places. And I have the same issue at my house. I have little springs that pop up on the grass, and it's just because everything is so wet, and there's so much runoff. There's so much runoff, especially if the ground is hard. There's not a lot of vegetation, so the water never gets a chance to really percolate into the ground, and then it just takes a little bit of rainfall to cause flooding. I mean, Emily and I, we've been going to communities around, like we were just in Hyattsville, and there are places that are rivers that are just popping, like you said, it's just popping up.
It's popping up.
Little thing. And then the issue here is that current systems, the current designs, usually if the drainage crosses 2 or 3 lots, it has to be collected in some type of a system with an easement around it so it can be maintained, like an inlet or a swale or something. But when, Mount Rainier was built, no, those rules weren't in place.
Imply.
And it just, make the water go down here. And people didn't, I mean, I know my grandparents' house, because I know that it sits on the top of the hill and it still would have basement flooding.
That's time.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to have you take up all of the time.
No, but please.
The easy mine is we need to have something else looked at.
Yeah, we're more than glad to answer any questions if you can get them to us. We can certainly do that.
All right. Thank you so much. Council,
You're
would you
welcome.
like to add 5 minutes to see if anybody else would have a question or concern they would like to raise before we move to the next item?
I'm open to that if other people are, but I'm also fine if folks don't have any questions to move forward. I'd like to hear what other council members have to say.
Hearing nothing, thank you so very much for the presentation. I look forward to see the ending of the report so that we at least have something to start moving forward on. Luke, I asked you 4 years ago to take on this, and I really appreciate where we are and hope that we can keep this moving.
Yep, no problem.
Right. Much appreciated.
Have a nice evening, and please feel free to email us. Thank you.
All right, the same to you. Okay, CDMA fees, I think that's where we are now. Excuse me. I asked to have this year on the agenda. Brooke Kidd also asked to have this item on the agenda. And I was at the MRBA meeting a few days ago, and we wanted this item on the agenda. So I'm going to stop, and I do see Brooke over here. Thank you. And let Brooke introduce it again. And hopefully we can have some discussion and have a recommendation to move forward. Brooke, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. And joining me from work is Daniel Cruz, who is the newly elected president of MRBA. So please congratulate him when you see him next as you're picking up your order at ZZ's. We know that a number of our businesses have had a challenge in this past year to just simply make ends meet and survive. And we have been looking at ways to continue to support them and create some relief for their operations. And business member Nisi Baylor suggested that we ask for a waiver of this year's business license and CDMA fee for any eligible businesses. So I'd like to
Thank you. That got us where I needed to be. In my discussion with Brooke prior to us going to the MRBA meeting, one of the things we had talked about is how can we help our struggling small businesses? There are some complications in this process, and that some of our small businesses had not paid their business license fees for the previous year. The CDMA fee would be something that the MRBA would have to decide not to require us to collect. But according to our charter, we're supposed to collect them right about now up through April. But the business license, which is the other part of that, which this does not speak to and should have, is whether or not the mayor and council could come up with a strategy that would allow those businesses most hurt, small businesses that were most hurt during this pandemic and will continue to be until things get better, if we would waive the business license fee. That's something we can handle or discuss in terms of whether or not we can do that. Some businesses did very well, so I'm not asking, or the discussion is not asking to waive all business fees, but for those that can show the more desperate need. And that's what I'd like to have the council discuss. And then Brooke, during her prior to her departure as president, felt that CDMA would be able to meet us halfway with waiving those same businesses' CDMA fees. Council, what are your thoughts on both of those? I'm going to start with you, Brian, since you're in Ward 2.
I
I
guess
see you more clearly than anyone else.
I guess I would want to hear from staff, the finance director, and Latasha about any impact. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that because a lot of the businesses are closed, I'm assuming that code enforcement hasn't had to go inspect anything. So we could look at it that way. I'm sure the liquor stores were making money and the Dollar General, so some of them probably did fine. But I guess I'd just be interested in the financial impact. And this would be for this fiscal year, not next fiscal year, I guess is the other question.
It will be for this fiscal year, not for the previous one or for the future one. It's for right now. If you take a snapshot of where the businesses are, some of the businesses just can't afford to pay us, period. If you want to know the bottom line.
But so are some of them still owing the business license for the past year?
I think a few of them have come forward and paid, even though it was a struggle, because code enforcement, with no other guidance, has to do what the orders say. They have to try to collect the business fees.
Right. That's my comments.
Okay. Scott, since you're right there next to us.
Thank you. Yeah, similar questions that Brian has about the fiscal impact, so I'd like some answers there. I think I'm generally in support of this. Mayor, thank you for breaking it down for us. I'm still a little bit confused about how to handle businesses. Well, I'm sorry, you're asking about two separate things. When it comes to the business license fees, I'm a little confused about how we're going to handle businesses who have already paid. If we're looking at refunding any of those. So that's one question I have about the business license fees. And if I heard you correctly, Mayor, it's really a decision for MRBA to make in terms of the CDMA fees. But still, I want to know what the fiscal impact for the city / MRBA will be for either or both of these things.
Okay, the easy one is the last one, the CDMA fees. The impact on the city is that 10% we would collect from the CDMA fees for collecting them, which is not, as I understand it, a really huge amount. The bigger impact would be on CDMA, on MRBA, because they get the $100 out of $150. We only get 10% of the total pie, or whatever that might be. And
Mayor,
go ahead, Brooke.
No, I'm sorry. This is Latasha.
Latasha.
Yes. The email for the impact was sent to everyone on February 2nd.
It was.
So I'm confused. I'm sorry. Because did you guys not get it? I know Selena's the only one who responded. But it was.
Latasha, let's not do it that way. Let's make it simple. The guys and dolls may not have gotten it. Could you, if you're sitting there with it, could you just send it so they can look at it now? Because I don't want to put this back on here again. It's been on here twice.
Could I offer that the MRBA board approved last week's meeting to waive the CDMA fees? We see it needs to be linked together to offer any meaningful support. So if a business is struggling, that they are waived both CDMA and business license fees, and they're in good. They need to be in good standing and still complete the regular business license. We haven't resolved a refund situation. I don't know if Alma could speak to how many people have turned in their application. I know that a couple people that had a need for the waiver hadn't even submitted their application yet.
Latasha, were you able to send out the link to the February 2nd memorandum?
Mayor, this is Scott Cecil. Yeah, thank you. Before I yield the floor, I've got the email in front of me, and I'll just re-forward it to the council again, just in case anyone else also.
I already sent it. They didn't get it. I sent it again.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have it open on my phone, so I can't also see my inbox simultaneously. So I didn't know that. Thank you for pointing me to the email. I just read it, and thank you for sharing it. I hadn't seen that email yet and did miss it, so I appreciate you pointing it out to me. I'm glad I read it because it turns out the city manager has the same questions I do, which is, what do we do for businesses who have already paid? Are we going to be refunding anyone? So thanks for sharing the email with me. Still need answers to those questions. So I'm a little concerned because it seems like the city manager is asking us the questions that I have for her.
I think those are the questions she should be asking us. And as the policy makers, we need to give her the answers. Then that's why it's on the agenda for us to have that conversation tonight, so that we can give her some guidance on what to do going forward as the policymakers.
Thank you. So if anyone has a proposal for how to handle refunds from businesses who've already paid, that'd be great. That's it.
Thank you so much, Scott. Luke?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'll start with a couple things. The cost here this isn't a ton of money. This is you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it as we have a remaining balance of $8,000 that we're owed. We've collected $1,400 of the $8,000 that we were expected to receive this year. So you could look at it as a cost of $8,000. I think the better way to look at it is if you refunded everybody plus the $8,000, you're looking at a $9,500 cost here. And I think we should just think about it as this is $9,500. This is the thing that we could relinquish here. And then from there, I think you can go one of two ways. I think one of the options is, and I don't know if Brooke or Daniel knows a better way to do this, but I'm wondering if there is some, either by way of what the state prohibited as far as a business operating, or what businesses had to get aid for something. I'm just wondering, is there already an existing dividing line that would be really easy to tell us which businesses struggled, which businesses haven't, such that you could say, okay, these businesses fit into this bucket that we know were identified by the state or somebody else as having a hard time, and let's waive fees for them. And if you fall into that bucket and you haven't paid, you don't have to pay. If you have paid, you get refunded. And if you fall into the bucket of a business that has been successful, we collect your fee. If you've already paid it, great, you've already paid it. If not, we'll collect that. So I don't know that we need to think necessarily about, I think it's a $9,500 question. And I think the question is, what is the dividing line, at least for me, between who has been able to maintain profitability and who hasn't? And is there an easy way to tell that difference? And so that's kind of where my head is looking at this puzzle.
All right, may I go to you, Selena?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question will be, I think it was brought up, how many of the businesses are actually open versus closed. That needs to be taken into account when originally this got brought up, and thank you both, for making sure that they said, we should be looking at businesses that are in good standing, because COVID hit after the business license was due. So there shouldn't be a reason why staff or anybody's chasing after business trying to pay them the fee of last year, let's say, for example. The other thing is, if they're open and operating, there might be a legal binding where they need to get certain licenses in order for them to continue to do business. What I don't want is to create an opportunity for certain people that are not following the things that they need to provide safety for the customers to feel like it's a free-for-all during this year. So it might have to be a hybrid between maybe not waiving the whole complete fee, or whether they're closed or not, or what fee could potentially be charged when it comes to being able to expand the business, because quite a few of them, not all of them, quite a few of them are doing very well, and quite a few not. But does that mean that the people that are doing pretty well, are they going to be the only ones getting expected or not? So I definitely would like to see a breakdown with how many businesses have been closed compared to how many of them are open. And yeah, some of them are struggling. The other thing to take in consideration is the fact that some of them might have applied to the state and federally and will have gotten quite a few grants, and some of them were not able to apply or did not receive anything. That's something we also need to take into consideration, because some of the hard hitting ones, even if they apply, they didn't get any money, so they may need a little extra help from the city. So I'm in support. We just definitely need to like break it down to figure out like who we're gonna help. And I don't think, from my conversation with the business association with MRBA, like they're not saying they're gonna waive all of the CDMA fees. I think there's like a small portion because they also utilize those funds to be able to not just run programming, but hire staff to be able to work as part of them. So that's at least my understanding. So if we make sure we're clear on that, because I don't want them to think is the full fee if it's not. So if MRBA could clarify that, and Latasha, thank you for putting the document together. It sure helped a lot with the breakdown and some of the questions I had.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Daniel if he has a comment, and go back to Brooke, and then I would like to ask us to move forward with what we want to do with this. Daniel? Mr. President, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm sorry. I was snacking a little bit. So we're not asking, or we're not looking to have all of the business license waived. We are, going to have the ones that are struggling the most. But that is if, city mayor and council approves this for us, then we can go ahead and submit, get a questionnaire out and come back as a whole, and then present it right back to the city mayor and council, so we can pretty much let you guys know what businesses are struggling the most and what businesses we think need the help the most. But since this is something that Brooke pretty much created before our transition, I'm going to have her pretty much just take over the rest of the conversation for this, for the fees, since she's the one that pretty much hardwired everything together.
Thank you so much.
That's time.
All right, may I get at least 5 minutes more on this, council?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so very much. Brooke, can I get your feedback very quickly, and can I take us home?
Yes, so correct. To follow up with what Daniel said, we do not want to waive all CDMA fees. We just want to waive the business and CDMA fees for any struggling business. I had sent a recommendation to the city manager and Ron about filling out a form or a questionnaire that would give us an understanding of the business's needs while they also request for this type of waiver. So we can assess if they've had any previous support. I don't think it's going to be easy for us to kind of draw a line of success for them, but I think that people who have a need will come forth and request it. And we would like to work with city staff to make this easy and help communicate about it. And I think that hopefully answers most of the questions that were brought up.
All right, may I give you my take on this, and then we can decide to vote it. And you can't really vote, but I need consensus on where we go from here. I think it's not that massive of a task to do. We have 89 businesses, if I make no mistake. We know that the liquor stores would not qualify. We know that a couple of others may not qualify. So we're talking, and I would ask us, at one point in time, all the businesses basically were closed. But there are some that were closed that have still to this day remained closed. And so those are easy targets for me. So what I would recommend, if you all would consider it, is have the city manager work with Brooke, come up with, and Daniel, and come up with the criteria for applying it. What I would ask from us is that we actually come to consensus that we would want to waive the business fees for those that were most hardest hit, and to eliminate those that did not, and to have them give us the criteria by which we would take that. So we don't have to come back and rehash this whole question again. Then we come back and say, we accept the criteria. This is what we look at. And for those businesses that meet this criteria, we waive the business fee. Or you might even want to waive a portion of the business fee depending on where they fit in the middle of that. Yes, some of them did get money, some of them did not. And some of them aren't made. Even ZZ's Pizza, for example, it's been open, but I can tell you it's very close. I came very close to closing. So what's the criteria would be the issue, and could we help those businesses stay in business if we waive the fees? Those are the questions for me. How is that for a path forward?
Mayor, Selena.
Selena, may I hear from you, please?
Yeah, I had a question for MRBA. With some of them not being impacted as much as other, will they be open to just waiving their fee for some of them? Or they're thinking of this like a package deal, all or nothing?
No. They are very clear that it would be for those most impacted, not for all.
No, what I'm asking is, like, I know Brooke mentioned that they would like to see like the business license from the city and the CDMA fee waive, but I'm asking them if they will even be open to waiving the CDMA fee only to some of them, even if, like, they're not that bad where like the license fees need to be waived. So, but she said she would like to do both. They would like to do both, not just one or the other. That's what I'm asking.
I think it becomes hard to decipher, and we're also talking about the difference of $150 to $300. So my concern with only waiving CDMA fee is it starts to set a precedence that everybody can opt out of CDMA payments. And there's criticism that MRBA receives just as the city of, what do you do for my money? And I just think we could create a pathway where we implode CDMA.
Anyone else would like to respond?
Yes, Scott.
Scott, you have the floor.
Mayor, thank you. Yes, happy to move forward as you described. I understand that this is not, that it's not a huge amount of money that we're talking about, but I still want to see numbers though. Yeah. And so I apologize to the city manager and MRBA, because it sounds like, myself included, seems like we've been a bottleneck for you. I wish that you would have come to the meeting tonight with those numbers. It sounds like you've been waiting for us for some number of weeks to start doing the work. And I think that's unfortunate. So I'm glad you're able to move forward now. I do still have a question though about how this impacts the MRBA budget as an entity, and whether or not you're going to be back here during the budget season asking us to allocate you funds because you don't have CDMA fees coming in. And or if we eliminate CDMA fees, how is that going to impact the way that we fund your budget in the future? So I still have those questions. They don't need to be answered tonight, but it is just something that's on my mind.
Time.
All right. I have two people that have not had an opportunity to speak. Would each of you like a minute?
I disagree with your I agree with your recommendation, so I don't really need to speak. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Luke?
Yeah, I agree with the recommendation. Just bring back the businesses that we think we'd want to waive the fee for, and then we can figure out the cost. I think we can make this happen.
And go with the criteria.
Yeah.
All right, then I have at least consensus on that. Scott, your questions did not go unheard. I hear you, and I think we can cover that as part of it as we move forward. All right. So, Latasha, do you understand, and Brooke, what we need to do to get back to this and get it done?
Mayor?
Selena, yes.
Yeah, I think the path forward is fine, but can you guys clarify something for me to make sure that it's clear for the community when it comes to the money, the CMA money for CDMA money in our budget is basically a pass-through, not city tax money that is put into the budget for them, correct?
It's absolutely not tax dollars. It is definitely money that is paid by the businesses, and it is a pass-through for the city. But as a pass-through, the city gets 10% of whatever that is. All right, for an administrative fee.
Correct, but I just don't want it. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that, because I think Scott asked a question regarding will they come back and ask us to put more money in the budget for them. We do not put any more money for them. And if I'm wrong in that question, Scott, I just wanted to make sure your question didn't want an answer. And then community people assume this is something else that is not. So I wanted to make sure that was clear and that your question was answered.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. There is no taxpayer dollar or city money going into the CDMA fee. That is their money that we collect on their behalf. We take 10% for doing the job and we pass the rest on to them, which is them operating budget or however they want to use it. We don't care about that. It's for them to have some money to work with. Any other comments?
Yes.
Brian?
I think we are out of time, but the reason I asked that question, Mayor, is because the outgoing president of the MRBA just said, maybe we can move in a direction where we don't have CDMA fees at all. She just said that. So my question was, if we move in that direction, what is the MRBA budget money going to be coming from? Not that it's coming from taxpayer money now. What would happen in the future? That was my question.
Okay, let me kind of say that I hear you, but I would say that that's MRVA need to overcome. As an organization, they would be responsible for where their budget would come from, and it would be up to them to decide that. The city currently does not give them money for their budget, and I don't see us voting in the future to give them money for their budget. Okay? Thank you all very much. Natasha, are you clear? And Brooke, on where you?
I'm not clear on timeline.
Been set one, but I think you should if you wanted to put it on at the next legislative meeting.
But the next meeting is, the license is due on the 28th and your council meeting is next week. So we need to put word out to the community, so we will.
I'm lost, but I'm totally up with you. We will not vote on this in this direction until the first Tuesday in March. I believe that's the Tuesday, which would be the 2nd of March, if I make no mistake. All right. So the word need to go out to all of them. The criteria need to be in place. You need to have something for mayor and council to look at that meeting, the 2nd of March. So we would waive the delay of penalty for them on the 20th of March not paying their fee. But as I understand it, they haven't been doing it anyway. So I don't see how far back that will make it more than that, please.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Are we in agreement on that last part of what I just said, council? All right, I see Brian shaking his head. I don't see Luke. He's holding his head up with his hand. I can't see Selena nor Scott, so I don't know if they're at this public meeting or not, but I do hear them coming in and out.
I'm here. I'm actually in 2 systems just in case one of them drops.
All right, but hopefully I could see you all since it is a public meeting, but otherwise I can't tell whether you're there or not. Thank you so much. All right, that takes that item off the agenda with Latasha and Brooke getting together and coming back with something for us as quickly as they can. No later than being to us before the legislative meeting on the 2nd. So hopefully by that Friday, which would be the 27th, or somewhere in that ballpark. Check the dates. Thank you. May I go to you, Mr. Netler, on the Peace Park?
Absolutely. Here we are again. I'm just going to kind of give an overview. The council did ask, and Jack Sullivan and Shivali and MJ Park are all on the call, and Liz. So we've got all the parties at the table for once. We did ask the University of Maryland to come up with a 4th scaled down layout, which you've received and I believe is in the packet. And so just to remind you, Little Friends for Peace got the $50,000 grant from the Redevelopment Authority. We agreed back, I think, 2018 that we would contribute $40,000 to match that. And we agreed we would expend up to $10,500 for the University of Maryland to do the plans. Also as part of that 40,000 match, it can also include in-kind. So I'm assuming Mr. McCamali would be involved in this at some point, and so we could use some of that in-kind to match that. It won't have to be hard money. So a couple things, there's a number of questions I'd like to get answered tonight. One of them will be to decide whether you agree with this new plan. But before that, if Liz, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know you met with the RDA. Is there anything that you found out from them that's important to this discussion?
Thank you for having me. The RDA seems patient. They have asked, because I think the grant was awarded in April 2019, so we're sort of 2 years beyond. There does need to be a written request for an extension, and because the grant is held by Little Friends for Peace, that written request needs to come from them. Now, of course, because the city is working so closely with Little Friends for Peace, I can draft that request, but I do need to have MJ Park or KD sign it. So I need to have that in place. Otherwise, the RDA seems to be patient. There were a couple of quarterly reports missed, but that was during, last year and COVID, and they understand that.
Okay, and have they actually provided any funding to Little Friends for Peace in the city up to this point, or is all that $50,000 still sitting there?
It's all reimbursable. So no money has been expended, no money has been released, and it won't be. It's reimbursable, and so what that means is, as you know, if the city spends the money, then Little Friends for Peace will have to request the reimbursement. So there is that administrative piece that only they can do.
Right. Okay. And the University of Maryland has been paid by the city. Do we know how much? Jack, I think we can look into that, but.
Yeah, Jack can, Mr. Sullivan can double check me here. I believe $5,000 was invoiced and $5,000 was paid. And I think, Jack, tell me if this is correct. I think that there's still another $5,500 worth of work that's been done. And as soon as the University of Maryland puts that invoice together, then that will be, another invoice that the city owes.
I'm going to step in here, excuse me, just to mention that I'm still trying to get the figures directly from my business office. So I don't know if we have spent all of those funds. So I don't know if we're ready to invoice the other $5,500, but I'm hoping to find out this week.
Okay, but we set that, we agreed we would pay that money. So when you get the invoice, we'll get to that. There's a few other questions I know are outstanding. There's an MOU, this is for MJ. There's an MOU that was to be between the city and Little Friends for Peace. We do not have a signed copy of that. Did you all sign that, or is that still outstanding?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I thought we had signed that way in the beginning. That was my understanding.
I guess we do not have a copy. At least that's what Liz has told me. I don't know if Shivali had a copy of it, but we need to get that signed. If it's not been signed, if there's a copy of it somewhere signed, we need to find it. So that's an outstanding issue that needs to be taken care of. Shivali, do you know whether it was ever signed, and do you happen to have a copy of it?
I remember at the time, this was over the summer of 2020, that we were doing that, and I remember talking about it with MJ, but I don't remember if it was actually signed, but I don't remember objection either. So I definitely don't have a copy of it.
I mean, I can look, Brian. I perhaps have a copy of it, which I thought was, I hate to say, but there has been a lot that has transpired in the time, meaning I'm a little fuzzy on that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I think we can sort that out. I mean, we can figure that out after the meeting and find it, but I'll put it on my list of things to follow up on.
Right. So if nothing else, we can just sign a copy of it now. If we can't find the old one, we just need to get that one signed so Liz has that signed copy. Maybe it never was signed, but we just need to have one. So the other issue was the 10,500. There seems to be a question as to whether that can be applied to the 40,000 match. I think it is a little fuzzy in the agreement, but I think it's pretty clear that we can. But if you want to have Alyssa, the city attorney, look at that and just make sure we can do that, that would probably help move that forward. I read the contract today, or the agreement, and we are missing Exhibit A, which is the scope of work. So MJ, as the grant holder, you could maybe work with Liz and get a hold of whoever is the appropriate person at RDA that has Exhibit A, so that we all have that Exhibit A to see what the scope was in the final. We have the proposed scope that you did originally, but that's not necessarily what was attached to the signed agreement with the county. So that needs to be fixed. So I think that's all the questions I have that are outstanding that need to be answered. So the one thing the council needs to do is see if you're okay with this fourth rendition of the layout, which is in front of you. And as Jack is here, if you've got questions for him, it's basically, I mean, you've seen the other three are attached as well to your packet. This one's much simplified, although there's still a few elements that I'm probably going to make some suggestions about, but I'll let people talk first. So that's it. So once we can come up with a final agreed to plan, then we need to figure out who's going to actually come up with the construction drawings, because the University of Maryland's not going to do that part as far as I understand. So we'd have to do an RFP, I believe, and find out, and then we would know, put it out for bid and see how much it's actually going to cost. I'm hoping we're not going to hit that $90,000 with the simplified version. But I'll just point out quickly, well, I don't know, Jack, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, there's a rain garden in there. There's the labyrinth is still there. He's included lighting. Repairing the well and getting that drainage issue fixed is a big part of this. And Mr. Kamali has had that looked at. We know that the pipe is either gone or clogged, and that's why the water's standing there. So there's a proposal to put a new pipe in the ground. And part of the paths are gravel, so they're permeable. There's a very minor path that crosses from 33rd to Shepherd Street. At this point, I guess, are there any comments from the council on this new proposal?
I have a question, Brian, for you, but be for you, the group, or whoever wants to answer it. One of the holdups beyond what you've already stated was that there were still some concerns out there by the residents who were going to be living next to that park, and whether or not they had input again, because some of them said they really had not had input initially, and no one had come back to them. Now we resolved that piece of the puzzle, because they're the ones that I have my concerns about their buy-in.
So no, they haven't seen this. I wanted to get the council to even say if they're even agreeable to this one. Then we would certainly, ask the neighbors and the whole city what they think of this one. But this is much simplified. We did address several of their issues. There's not as much landscaping being moved around. There was a lot of concern about the retaining walls and other disturbance to the site. This is much more minimal. But yes, of course, they'll have to see this. And we're not voting on this tonight. This is just to see if we can move forward with this and get the other questions answered so that we can move forward. We are, we don't want to lose that $50,000. Nothing else. We've got to have to fix the well or the spring regardless. We've got a mosquito issue. And so, that part of it definitely, I think the neighbors were okay with that part. I think it was mostly the moving around of the landscaping that was one of the biggest. But yes, we'll have to get comments from them as well.
The other concern from the neighbors as I recall, and I could be totally wrong, it's been so long, was the draw of people to that park that may or may not disturb their quality of life. And I don't know what we would do to address that. I don't know if there have been any discussions around it or whether or not, and you've just answered that part. I did not know whether or not they'd had any input in that with regard to reducing the sound or keeping the quiet, because that was one of the real concerns that I heard. But I'm prepared to move forward and open it up to council. Let me go to Ward 1. Let me ask you, Luke, then Selena.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I appreciate the work that's gone into this, MJ, Jack, Chevali, Brian, in bringing this back. I totally support the new plan, the kind of narrow down scope. I think that would meet everybody's interest, and I am just guessing that that work on the well is gonna cost more than folks could expect. So I think a narrower scope of a plan makes sense so that we do keep in budget for this project. And my recommendation would be that, Latasha's going to have to decide who owns this project going into the RFP. I'm just guessing that would be Public Works, but as we go through that process, I just think it would be helpful to have, updated meetings with Brian, maybe you, Chevali, MJ, and Liz and Jack, just to make sure, everybody's hearing the same thing and knows the progress and can address any challenges, just so we don't find ourselves in this state again where, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I think there's a lot of moving pieces here, so I think it would be really good to have those kind of updated progress meetings, whoever Latasha thinks should be, owning this project.
Selena?
Yeah, thank you for all the work that's being done and for the different revisions. I think that we're keeping the ladder and having a space that's supposed to be a little bit peaceful and quiet. Talking to a few of the neighbors around there, they seem to be, especially when we did the kids' porch fest, they were happy to see that space being utilized by the community, and also having a space where people will feel like safe to be, because not all the areas in the city do have spaces where people could sit or spend some time on it. The way this is designed is definitely not designed to have big crowds. It doesn't have, a bunch of other stuff, toys and different things like that, where people might be more creative on it. But I think that some of the concerns that the neighbors had will be able to be weighed even by looking at this design. And I think they were considering looking for putting on some trees against the wall as well to make sure there was a sound barrier, but also some safety stuff. I think I see it in the picture right now, like the rain garden and stuff like that. So thank you for all the work being put together. MJ, thank you for your team. Brian, Chevali, it's great. Definitely house it somewhere, so that way there is more of a follow-up, so that way this is not brought up to us, or we don't bring it up like almost half a year later. So I will hate to have to return the money, especially when we could ideally fix the well and stop some of the mosquito problem. And the way we just got the other presentation, the water rising everywhere, this is something we're going to have to address before it becomes a problem. So thank you for that.
Let me go to Scott Cecil, please.
I think most of what can be said already has been. Just wanted to say thank you to Brian for shepherding the process. I think it's been since last summer, maybe you said, since we last talked about this. And thank you for making sure, and thank you, Jack, and your students and anyone else who was involved, for making sure that the concerns that we raised last year were incorporated into this new proposal. Great job.
Thank you so much. So it sounds like we have a go.
I want to hear from MJ. She's looked at this. This is Little Friends for Peace grant, and so I just want to make sure that she's okay with what we're doing. We're partners in this, if that's okay.
Not a problem at all. I was following you all lead, and I thought we were at consensus, and everybody was on page. I was ready to move. MJ, how are you? Good to see you. Please.
I too want to thank everyone, and I think the concern I have has been addressed a little today in the sense that maybe having a little meetings as we go into more action with this that is clarified. I would like clarity for the city as to the understanding, not that everybody's going to read it or to understand, but the role that LFFP plays in and the support of the city behind it. Because I think one thing that LFFP does not want is something that is, not that everybody's going to agree, but is controversial. In other words, tonight to hear from the city council and your vision of this, because if there was perception the night, and I think Luke was there, of people not understanding the grant and, like Little Friends for Peace is getting this, 50,000 or how much ever, when we're not getting any of this money. It's money that we are helping by being a nonprofit and helping to create a peaceful place. Now, the mayor has brought up the controversy, which was brought up that night. And, I would like, we are a peace organization, so we want to do it in a peaceful way, that we've checked the boxes in terms of the process and respect for the neighbors, etc. So I, meaning LFFP, want to have the process be one of clarity, one of respect and understanding as we move forward. So it was in the parking lot for a while, and that government has obviously done a lot of things for people. Some might think it's gone, some might have had new light with it. I think this new plan is saying we respect your concerns and we want to move forward in a win-win way. Now, the world will do win-win. I know that that is not easy to accomplish, but I want, as we go forward, if LFFP's name is going to be attached to it, which we are, the concept Peace Park, beautiful. I've advocated it from the time we came. We have a mini little thing down at 30th and Arundel. We know that. So this vision, and I want to thank University of Maryland, I love it. But again, the step we're taking, I need to know where City Council is. I need to hear that you guys are behind this and that you see it as a plus, just like Selena said, and that the process be one that I'm not hearing, MJ and Jerry and Little Friends for Peace is self whatever. We're doing this because we love Mount Rainier. And, obviously we do hope to bring a little group of campers there to learn peace and to, advocate for them to be peacemakers so that Mount Rainier and all cities will be better. So it is with their we have them in mind. We're not here to disrupt their privacy. So you know where I'm going with this. That's the only concern I have.
Okay.
I think we can work it out as the process as the meetings.
May I ask if there's time? Can I ask to speak?
Please, you have the floor, Jerry.
It's Jack Sullivan.
Jack. Okay, Jack. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I just wanted to say that you mentioned that, Mayor, you mentioned that there were some issues from the neighbors. And I want to make sure that you know that you addressed those in the new plan, but you haven't, the new plan is not up on the screen and it hasn't been this evening. So if you would like to see the new plan, I'd be happy to show it. If Latasha is willing to let me share that, I can show you what that looks like.
May I ask, may I stop you for a minute, Jack? How far are we with the time?
That is, we already had time.
We out of time? I don't think the issue for me, and there is no real issue, it's not with the plan. The modifications I certainly do support. What I do want, and what we had talked about over a year ago, is making sure that the residents had their say as well. in terms of the plan and moving forward with whatever plan we come up with. What I heard from them at that meeting and what I've heard from them by email is that they had a meeting or 1 or 2 meetings when they were moving toward doing the plan, and they have not had input since. And they do cherish their piece that they've had with the park, even in its raggedy condition. That they do not wish to have that piece disturbed, even with a wonderful, beautiful park, and that it's going to be kept clean. That is also it's not going to become my basketball court with the bouncing ball at 12 o'clock midnight up against Arundel Park Apartments. So I just want to make sure as we move forward that they do have their say. So it's not a for, against, opposed, or whether it's going to shatter the peace or whether we're going to support this plan or not. It's a matter that it is next to their homes.
Okay, I just wanted to, just
okay.
let you know that there is a different version. Fine.
Okay. Any other concerns or questions? And Brian, what is your next step so that we can know where we are going forward to keep this on track?
Latasha, we had the plan in the packet. Didn't you show it on the screen? It was right after.
That was the old one.
I did, but Jack said that wasn't the correct plan.
Well, go to the
old one.
Go to the first page after the stormwater presentation. I think maybe the first page.
That's what it was. He said that wasn't the right one.
Oh, really? That's the one I thought you sent me.
Yeah, I was there. He said that's not right. So,
Jack, I guess you need to send it again. I thought that was the one that you had just sent me recently.
That one?
Yeah. No?
No, that's not the correct one.
No. Sorry, guys. I thought that was the one that I had.
It's not. You may have it, but it's not the right one. So could you just send it out to us again?
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to show. Okay, so I want to show the correct one to the neighbors, for sure.
Thank you so very much. So I'll step forward. Once we get the correct, up-to-date plan to all the mayor and council. 2, make sure that as you present it, you present the correct one to the neighbors, and that if we're going to have a hearing or have another meeting, that they are also at the table. That would be my recommendation. Comments? Thank you so much, Latasha, Brian. Thank you all so much for the work. MJ, good to see you. Jack, hope you've had a great year. Thank you all for keeping safe. Shavali, thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Forward. All right, have a good evening. You all are welcome to stay with us. All right, can I go up on this one, Latasha?
yes, but we're going now to
the letter.
The letter, yes. I didn't want to forget that. We're going to the letter now.
Yep, I'm ready for the letter.
All right, let me pull it up.
Elena?
I'm here. Let me move from one screen to the other. So as you guys are aware, there has been a proposal for an expansion of the lanes in order to create a toll. WSSC was at the meeting. The letter depicts a will of Mount Rainier not wanting it, which basically means that the water bill will be going up as part of them being able to pay for it. I also have, okay, that's definitely not the letter. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by so many things flashing.
I'm trying to get there for you, Selena. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine because I have you on the phone and the computer, so I'm seeing a lot of stuff flashing on my glasses. It's not working. So keep going. That's not it. So if you read through the letter that was sent, it basically says that Mount Rainier does not support it, and our residents are not going to be benefited by this project. However, they'll be paying part of of this bill is going to be paid through them to be able to finance the expansion of the lanes. You're gonna have to go. It was the last item on the agenda.
I don't have it in here.
Natasha?
John just said I don't have it in here.
Okay, well, it was sent also to the lawyer, and she's going through it. Let me pull it
No
up.
letter was provided to me, unfortunately.
Latasha, did the lawyer send it back to add it to the package?
She did send it back, but she had comments on there for you. You were CC'd on it.
I didn't receive anything. Oh, I may have missed it. So I do have Joseph here as well. I hope he's here. That could also tell you guys about the letter, but basically that's what the letter states. Here, let me give you guys the what lane I'm speaking about, so you guys have a better understanding. My apology, I wasn't meaning to read the whole letter. I thought it was going to be shown in screen. Okay.
Just for clarification, Selena, before we jump to the letter, why not give the council and the public, one, what is the letter about, the purpose of the letter, and the reason we are going to be discussing it tonight? Because I'll say this, and I may be totally asleep already. I'm not certain about what letter we're talking. That's number one.
Okay.
Two, what are we being asked to do with the letter? And why is it important? The letter is not in the package either, by the way.
Yeah. So the letter is regarding the impact of the Beltway on I-270, expansion of the P3 project on WSSC water infrastructure and rate for taxpayers. That is what the letter is about, and it's addressed to Governor Hogan, the Controller of Maryland, Peter Frankosh, and to the Treasurer of the State of Maryland. The letter basically reads, they had a meeting, so it is understanding from a joint briefing by WSSC staff, water staff in March, that Prince George's County Constant Transportation Infrastructure and Energy Environmental Committee and the Montgomery County Constant Transportation Environmental Committee, that the widening of the I-495 and the I-270 could require spending up to $2 billion to reallocate for water and or sewer infrastructure. Additionally, WSSC water staff detailed the potential impact of its network, and the most impactful being the WSSC water contention that the association costs to reallocate water and sewer infrastructure will be borne by taxpayers in the two counties under the current agreement with MDOT. So that's basically the overall of the letter. Part of the problem is like our city, this pair of people that bike or take public transportation to work, and the telework is even higher. Our residents should not be on the hook for higher water bills for lanes many of them will not even travel on. It is primarily an example of privatizing profit for installation costs. So tolls have not shown that they reduce traffic. It is a system where only the ones that could pay could ride them, so it will not reduce the traffic. The other thing is like those $2 billion are going to be coming out of the taxpayers' money, and that's basically what the letter is. The overall summary of the letter. I apologize. I really thought I could forward you this letter. So we send it to legal for them to be able to take a look at it to figure out if this is something. We go with like having an opinion. Both Montgomery County and Prince George's County also send a letter in opposition as well. Because it is going to take a lot of money to get this done. So it is also, as a city, taking a stand when it comes to this expansion and how it will not benefit our residents, and how, especially during this time, we will not be able to have a bill increase that will help our residents.
All right, I think I heard you, and I think I'm clear on what the ask is. I'm going to ask Luke to go next, then I'm going to go to Scott, then I'm going to go to Brian. And then I'm going to ask Natasha, what did legal counsel say about it, since I don't remember seeing the letter, and don't take that as a personal. I'm so far behind on emails until, if you didn't send it yesterday, I probably wouldn't find it anyway. All right, so let me go to you, Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. Selena, I just want to thank you for bringing this up, and Joseph as well. I am generally not supportive of the funding for interstate expansion if there are other options available to get folks around, and I think there are. I think the Baltimore Sun just came out with an editorial in support of the maglev train that would go between DC and Baltimore and ferry people back and forth, 300 miles per hour, which would be great for the state of Maryland. That's a lot of construction jobs, and it's sort of green energy and a way to get to and from, two big metropolitans very quickly. But I am also concerned with what the city attorney has have said of the letter. So I'd be interested to hear that. But I think in general, I'm against taxpayer money that's spent to widen roads, because a lot of times what we find out is you widen roads and then those roads just get full of traffic jams. All you're doing is encouraging more people to drive, and I don't think that's the right solution. I think denser living and green infrastructure is the right solution. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay. Scott Cecil?
Yeah, I don't think I'll have any comments until I can read the letter and also see what the city attorney said. Thank you to Joe also for being here in case people have questions. I know you've been working on this for some time, and you asked me about it last year, and it just somehow fell off my radar screen. So I'm glad you were able to get it in front of Selena. I'm a little bit surprised to hear that the city attorney saw this before we did, because I know I've been chastised in the past for not doing it that way. So I'm a little bit surprised by that, but I look forward to reading the letter and hearing what the city attorney said. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you so much. Brian?
I ditto for what Scott just said about needing to see the attorney's comments. And just to give my philosophy, I think with all the teleworking that's now happening, I've been saying this for years, if we just let people telework, they wouldn't need to be on the roads. So I would just question the need for adding more lanes to a freeway if people are going to continue to work from home. I know not everybody can, but a lot of the government employees that are on those roads are working from home now. So I think we need to look at that, and that's all I have to say for now.
I need to respond very quickly and let us move forward. I have no response until I see the letter. I haven't seen the letter. I have no idea what's in it. And I can't do the broad brush of we don't need the lanes or that we do. I personally do not support maglev. Maglev will not be serving anybody in Prince George's County, and it's going to go under people's homes. It's going to disrupt many of the neighborhoods from the way they are. And yes, it is going to be more green because it's going to carry X many more people, but it certainly won't be serving Prince George's County, and we won't be getting the money from it. Let me see what you got going with the other piece. In terms of what we are here, we're talking about the letter, but I only respond to that because Luke brought up maglev. So,
Mayor,
may I finish? So where I am with this is, may I get, and if you sent the letter, as I said earlier, please resend it to me, and please share with me the letter with the attorney's comments.
Can you hear me? Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah, you have the floor, Selena.
So I just forward you guys the.
You went away, Selena. Selena, you're not there.
I think she was trying to see if she just forwarded you guys the letter.
Yeah.
I think that's what she was trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Thank you, Latasha. I said the letter was forwarded to you. I guess I wasn't see originally on it, but it's there. And just to clarify, this is not a letter in my behalf. That's the reason why I put in the agenda. So that way it will be a letter on behalf of Mayor and Council. And you do have any questions, Joseph is here. He could answer some of the questions. He's taking a lot of the lead on that. And there is the information I wanted to put in front of you in a work session to see so we could have a conversation about it. And if this is the letter the council approve, then we could approve it and send it forward.
Thank you very much, Selena. I did see the letter, but I certainly can't read it and run this meeting. And I have not had an opportunity to look at it. Council, Do you wish to have comments from Joseph while he's here, or would you like to read the letter? But I got a couple of questions for Selena very quickly. What's the deadline? When is it due? Who else have supported this? And where did the letter come from, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Where the letter came from, that's easy. I collaborated with Joseph, who we all have collaborated when it comes to green initiatives. Is there time sensitive? It is, as this is moving forward. I felt like it was a little delayed because of COVID, but not too much. But I think it's important for us to send a letter out. The sooner the better. And my understanding is both Montgomery County and Prince George's County also we're not in favor. And Joseph, I'm missing something, I would like for him to add.
I would just add two things. One is that other municipalities have. I can try and track down a list for you, but I know we would not be the only municipality that's going to send in letters like this to the Board of Public Works. And the other thing I wanted to add is I just wanted to make one point of clarification, and that is it's not actually just the taxpayers that are going to be paying this. It's the ratepayers for your water bills. So even low-income folks that are going to have higher water bills as the result of this plan, not just so it's not going to be based on income tax or anything like that. So I just wanted to add that extra point. So that's what I guess the real concern I had with the way they wanted to finance the moving of the pipes and the sewer pipes to put in these new beltway lanes.
Thank you so much. Council, any questions beyond where we are? So here's what I would recommend as we move forward. One, we all have the letter now. Let's maybe all of us read it. Any comments on it? Let's edit and bring it forth. And I don't think they're going to put the lanes in before we get this letter read and our either support or rejection in. So let's make sure we get it back to the next work session, if not before. And if we find out there's a time sensitivity to it that needs it in before the legislative, by the legislative meeting, which is March 2nd, we could always have a work session ahead of the legislative session to take action on it, to put it on the agenda to vote on it for that night. Will that work for you, Selena?
We could, question for you guys is like, once you guys looked at it and if the changes are minor, is there any way for us to vote on it on the next legislation section?
There's always the possibility, but I just said that, I think, but I just kind of said it differently.
Oh, apologies.
I don't know what your difference is.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Then if we need to or want to, we can have a work session prior to the March 2nd for the sole purpose of reviewing the letter, making comments, changes, and then putting it on the legislative agenda on March 2nd. So would you all please get your comments in to Latasha so that if there are corrections or things we want to add or take out, we can move on this and move it forward. Any comments? Are we good to go? Thank you so very much. Brian, you're back on the floor for parking meters.
Okay, this sort of came up when the neighbors down at Perry and 33rd were looking into a parking zone, and we started looking at our parking meters in that area, and I realized that our ordinance is not even in the realm of connection with reality of what we've got on the ground at this point. So it's only talking about coins, doesn't mention the credit card issue. So most of the amendments are trying to bring it up to the reality on the ground. I do have comments, which thank you, John, for getting those on the in the packet to help you see what I did and why I did it, to give you some explanation. I'm not wedded to any particular, this is just to help you all get this fixed. I adjusted some of the time periods around that area, taking into account the new businesses that are opening, and I gave those comments. I did make one mistake, which I'll point out in comments 6 and 7. I said that the neighbors could park if the meters ended at 10 p.m., the neighbors could park there at 7. That is not true. I believe all of our, and Acting Chief Alston has not commented on this, but I think all of our meters are for 2 hours. So they would actually have to park there at 8 to be able to continue to parking there overnight. So that is an error, I'll point out. And then that raises the question, do you want to, down in section C that I've added, I do specifically say that our parking meter time limits are 2 hours. Do you want it to be 3? Do you want it to be, I don't think you want it to be 1. But I believe all of them are consistent throughout the city. And hopefully we'll get comments from the acting chief before this comes back to us. And that's basically it. I mean, you're just going to have to decide whether you like, I mean, for instance, we still have the meters going till midnight on Rhode Island Avenue in the 3200 block, which was probably not very useful. And we still have a section which I took out, which talked about when our meters used to go to 2 a.m. when Bass Liquors was there, which is no longer true. So that's been struck out. And there's little fixes here and there that reflect reality. Like we never put meters in the 4000 block of 33rd Street, which it mentions in the ordinance as it stands now. That never happened. And that's basically it. So I'm just basically hoping that you all can, you know, think about whether some of these time periods are reasonable. I upped the time period in the 3800 block of 34th Street because it only went to 7 p.m. And now we're going to have these various restaurants and wine bars and things in very near proximity to that. So I brought that into the same time period as would be on the Rhode Island Avenue, but left the time period as it is up by Glut in the 4000 block since there's no new businesses coming in there. And I think all of them are closed except for that little convenience store. Well, no, CC Pizza's open. I'll take that back. Anyway, so that's the proposal, and I'm just open to comments just to get this fixed. And like I said, I'm not wedded to any of these time periods. I just tried to make my best guess what you might want and gave you the comments in the comment boxes so you could see exactly what I did.
Thank you so much. Let me start with Scott Cecil to follow Brian in terms of the proposal. This is a work session. You can make changes, add, subtract, whatever. It will come back to us again before we have to vote on it. So you don't have to be carved in stone tonight. Scott, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll hold my comments for now, but I will definitely give you feedback offline, Brian. I need time to digest this and understand. I haven't looked at it yet, admittedly. I do have one question though. Did you say that the ordinance stipulates that we should have meters on the 4000 block of 33rd Street?
Yeah, it never happened.
Is that 33rd Street between Perry and Bunker Hill?
Yeah, it's by the church and between the church and the gazebo.
Okay, got it. All right, that's it for now. I'll look this over and make sure to give you feedback offline. Thank you for taking the time to, yet again, this is yet another thing on your laundry list that you're trying to clean up ordinances and stuff for us before your retirement. So very much appreciated, sir. Thank you very much. I'll give you some feedback.
All right, let me go to Selena. Selena, are you there, hon?
I am here. I apologize. So you're seeing me on my computer and I'm talking on my phone. That's basically what you're seeing there.
Oh, okay.
To one the other. That's the reason why you're like watching the phone.
How are you? Thank you so much.
That's why you sometimes see me moving from one camera to the other. That's why you sometimes don't see me, but I'm in the different video and in the phone one. So I'm jumping back and forward. No, but thank you, Brian, for putting this together and taking the time. I echo the sentiment of like, I'm glad your bucket list is being completed, which is like a great asset to the city of Mount Rainier. So if you need a couple more things in your bucket list, I'll be happy to add a couple of them as well. So that way, you know, you don't feel like it's fully completed. But I will say thank you for making sure the time, I mean, it's lined up. You mentioned CC's Pizza, but they have their own private parking lot. So they're usually, I'm not going to say 100% not affected, but remember they do have their own parking lot they have in the back for a lot of those businesses, and they could park quite a few cars in there. The concern that I had, even when we were talking, like later on, I thought about it, was when it came to the parking in front of the liquor stores. I wanted to make sure that, you know, that even if it's changing, that doesn't guarantee people from the artist building could potentially park there. I don't want it to people start noticing that they could just like park there and start drinking in front, and creates a bigger problem in the long run. So thank you for putting this document together. If I see something that flag, I'll send the recommendation number your way via email. The other thing, there were parking meters between 34 and 33rd by the right in front of the church. There are parking meters in that block. So that I know for a fact they're there. But thank you for that, and I'll leave it as that, and I'll send whatever comment I have on the document that you sent, so that would make it a little bit easier.
All right, let me go to Luke.
So Brian, the 30, you're walk me through the thinking, and I'm sorry if I missed this when you were going through it, but the thinking behind, I guess. No, you know what? Never mind. I was kind of reading the wrong thing in your email. So it sounds like as long as police think, from my vantage point, as long as the chief thinks that the times that we've inputted there are good and won't cause problems, it sounds like I'm good with them. 10 p.m. it's usually what it is all throughout DC in a lot of places. And so I think that makes good sense. That gives somebody the opportunity to park their car at 8, pay the meter till 10, and stay there. So I think that would be good for some residents. And I think the 2-hour limit makes sense. I was thinking about whether you'd want to change that, but I think 2 hours going to 1 and 3 would cause other problems, you know, either way. So I think it makes sense. So I'm good with it as is, pending the feedback from the.
Brian, you know, there has to be some disagreement. So I'm going to disagree with some of the things that are in there, or even some of your comments. And that I don't know if I've missed something, but I remember we had staggered terms on some of those meters. It wasn't consistent throughout the city. I remember that fight with the hairdressers because some of the women getting their hair braided take more than 2 hours. And they have to stop in the middle of it to run outside to feed the meters. I also remember, and I could still be absolutely wrong, we gave short times on some of the meters for the liquor stores because we didn't want them to sit there forever. We wanted them to park, get their liquor, and move. There were some differences, at least there used to be, and I and I haven't looked at meters in a long time. But even after Bass, when we went from the liquor stores closing at 5 and reopening at 6, we didn't want them to stand on the meter because that gave us the double lane parking on Rhode Island Avenue. Had nothing to do with artist law or atmosphere, whatever that thing is. They weren't even built then. So I need to read what you've written so I could see where we're talking about. We also talked about taking some meters out of some places. I know there were some concerns, as I recall, on Perry Street about the length of the times on the meters. So let me read it and get back to you. But I think it's a good start for bringing it up to date. Because the other thing I wanted to say is when we wrote that ordinance, we weren't even thinking credit cards. We weren't even thinking cordless meters. That's happened in the last 2 years, and it's a good thing to bring it up to date. So thank you.
Latasha, could you get the acting chief to let us know if all the meters are the same, or whether the mayor could be right, they could be staggered, but I just couldn't. I wasn't going to drive around and look at all of them.
Yeah, they used to be staggered for very good reasons.
Okay, well, I don't want to change that if there's a good reason for it, but I would like to hear his comments or parking.
Yeah.
So
that's what I would like to hear too before moving forward on that one.
No, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much, and thanks for the work again. Let's bring us down here to Luke and Scott. I believe you have the floor on food security programs.
Great, thank you, Mayor. We talked about this at our last meeting, and we came back and rewrote the grant a little bit. based on our discussion. And so I just want to provide you with an update on what we did with the grant. We set the maximum amount that a entity could get for the grant at $1,000. I think in the fall we had set it at $5,000. This is a lot smaller program. So one question is, if there is interest in funding a grant program that would get money out to the organizations that are providing food for our residents, we could cap the amount at anything that pleased mayor and council, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, because with the 1,000 maximum, you have a little bit more flexibility there. But if folks are interested in this, one of the questions that I think we really wanted to bring back to the work session was with respect to how this would be administered. And I think the other conversation piece, so that's one point I want folks to consider, how this could be administered. And then the second point I think that would be good for discussion is understanding, I know we talked last time that there are gift cards still available. What does that look like? And would this be, something on top of that, or would this be duplicative of that? So that's really the two questions I want to present. And then the third question is sort of a budget question, which if we like this program, obviously we could do a budget amendment and fund it out of this budget, but our budget discussions are just around the corner, so we could just incorporate it into next year's budget as well. That's another issue. So really three questions for you guys to consider. One is how we would administer the grant, who would be in charge of administering it. Could be social service coordinator. I don't know. The only other place the city does grants like this is the recreation committee, and that's a volunteer committee. Number two is the how this plays in with the work the city's currently doing, whether it's duplicative or would add value. And then I think three is the funding. And so those are the three questions that I wanted to provide to the group. And of course, if you think this is not a good idea, you can share that as well. So those are the three questions I identified. I don't know if Scott, you have anything more you want to add?
Scott, are you there?
I'm here. I just didn't have anything to add. I was going to wait for you to come to us. But I'll go first. How about that?
How about that? Well, it's your bill. Come on. I want you to go next.
It is. I'm trying to contribute to the best of my ability of good use of our time, because I feel like not everyone else does that. So Luke, you and I have a habit of working together on stuff when really one of us is doing all the legwork. So I've kind of left the baton on this with you, and you've taken it and continued running. So thank you for doing that. I think part of it's COVID, but we're just at a point where I'm better working by myself and better handing things off to you. So thank you for keeping this alive and keeping it moving. I'll try to answer your questions. I think the administrative question is probably smaller than we've all been thinking. Well, I'll speak for myself. As you posed the question, I think the question of administration is a smaller question than I thought previously, because it isn't as if there are going to be 100 organizations coming out of the woodwork applying for this. I mean, we're talking about several organizations maximum. I'm also great with keeping the amount low. So even if folks only feel comfortable doing $1,000 for funding or for other reasons, I think keeping the amount low is fine early on, because organizations, if they spend the $1,000 well and can document that for us, they can just continue reapplying. In terms of where to fund it from, because I think it's a relatively small budget item for the rest of this fiscal year, I think I would be personally willing to pull it from contingency or even reserves if we had to do that. For me personally, I think this is enough of a priority to do either of those things. And I'm forgetting your third question, but I'll give the others time to respond as well. And then if we do a second round, I'll try to answer the third one if other folks don't. Thanks.
Brian?
I guess I have a few questions. The administration, you're probably going to leave this with staff, and I don't see any criteria of how they would evaluate the applications. So I don't want to throw that in their lap and then have to figure out how they're going to evaluate. How many $1,000 grants? I know you said it will probably only be a handful of organizations that would apply, but are you talking 5,000 total, 10,000 total if it's 10 organizations? How often can they apply? And also, as I always ask Latasha, how many of those gift cards are still sitting in the drawer? People aren't taking advantage of those because I think we should really get those out the door. I know you're advertising them, but I just curious to know how many are still sitting there.
They're gone, Brian.
Oh, yay!
Between Mayor Miles and Selena.
Okay, good.
And a couple of people who reached out to me, they're gone.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Selena?
Yeah, I was gonna say that the cars are gone. We've been definitely doing a lot of work. A lot of work. Being out there is definitely a lot. The need is big. So overall, definitely support. I think some of the questions that Brian raised was some of the questions I also had. Was this going to be 1,000 repeatedly? Is it just one thing from here to the end of the fiscal year? Definitely like think about like adding it. But the other component of it is when it comes to the new bills that are being signed in the new package that's going to be hopefully approved very soon. Where do we stand? I know there's like a big campaign about making sure the money funnels down once again to municipal level, so that we're able to like be in connection with the residents instead of being at a county or even a state level. That it has made it very hard for residents to be able to access those funds, and not just our residents. Residents from all over the state, because the competition is a lot bigger in comparison to doing something like at a municipal level. So that's something to look. I think the amount might be small enough where we could do this and figure out from here until the budget's done. If any more grant funding might come, then that money goes out first before we even touch this money. I'm talking about for the future budget, FY22. So as far as the housing and stuff like that, I think that you guys are all basically in the same line, but I also would like to hear from Latasha when, to figure out if this is something that potentially that person could do. That way we don't just make an assumption that they could when it might not be possible. And when it comes to applications, some of the organizations that have been doing work for a long time, not just the last year, COVID, are well-known organizations that have like been in our community doing this work, and some of them we actually have like very close working with them. So I think that even if it comes to a point of like vouching who they are, like some of them are, the city knows pretty well based on the work they've been doing in-house for a long time, some of them, and some of them in the last year.
Okay, thank you so much. I always question the word food security because I really don't know what it means. Are we talking about folks that are hungry? Are we talking about folks that have been out of jobs since COVID? Are we talking about food security that we have no stores that are within our area that folks want to go shopping to? I don't know. If we're talking about giving out money for folks to hand out food to people, I think we got a lot of folks doing that already. And do we allocate? If we decide that we're going to allocate the $20,000 or whatever number you're going to come up with these $1,000 grants, what's going to be the criteria? What's the stipulation? Do people need food? Absolutely. But I'll say this, and this is just some Melinda Miles' opinion. I don't know how many vegetables people can eat. Somewhere there has to be some meat, some rice, some gravy, and some other things that go with it. And are we going to minutely get down to saying these are the things you use with it? I know we give out these boxes every single week. I give out food almost every single day. And I will tell you, there's some people who have lost their jobs in this city that are not making it. And I don't know if the $1,000 to 5 different organizations going to reach those people if we're doing drive-bys. If we're having people actually identify, have the schools identify those folks who are really not getting the food, then maybe I will support this. But just to have 5 organizations get $1,000 each, I don't see what it's going to do unless they're going to do it every single week or every single day. As Latasha said, the gift cards are gone. And I'll just use this Saturday as an example. I told people that we would be doing the gift cards, the hand sanitizers, the masks, etc. And I turned away, I know, 20, 30 people on Saturday because we didn't have any more cards to give them. And they had proof that they had no food. They took pictures of their cupboards that had no food in them. I had one lady actually break out into tears to know she was going to get $100 gift card that she could go to Safeway and actually buy food for them. Are there people desperate for food? Yes. Is it that there's insecurity? Like I said, I don't know what that really means. If you mean that people are hungry in Mount Rainier and actually need help in buying food, that's an absolute need. And I would support filling that need, but I don't know if this program does it for me. Just based on the folks that I did bread today. And within 1 hour of me putting that notice out that there was bread available, I had folks knocking for more bread on my door. And it's not because they're greedy. It's not because they just wanted Panera bread. It's because they didn't have any other things in their house. This man, and men don't normally do the food pickup. This male came up and said, if you have any that you can give me, I know it's all gone on the porch, but can you just give me something? Because my family's been without food this entire week. We have a problem, but how are we going to identify that problem and how we're going to fix it? Throwing $5,000 at it to 5 organizations doesn't cut it for me. That's my take on this. I need a substantial program that really works. I need a substantial idea on how do we get people to social services? How do we get Angela Alsobrook and the governor to know that there is a food issue in terms of these people being off? They can't get their unemployment checks. There's such a backlog on all of that craziness. They cannot get social services and things done in a timely manner. I'll stop. Because that is my pet horse.
So this is Selena.
You have the floor, Selena.
So I definitely want to tell you that between the Thursday and the Tuesday distribution, we're able to give a lot of this to either Mounties Act or the pantry. So with some of the donations that they receive, they're able to fill in the other stuff that they cannot get. So the boxes of fruit and vegetables, like fresh fruit and vegetables, they've been able to get. Today we're able to receive like gallons of milk, and that's about 600 boxes that they give at the fire station. And the ones on Thursday, we're still pending, depending how bad the weather is on Thursday, to cancel and move it for Friday or reassess it, right? But at least the pantry, Mounties Act, what they do is like they will buy like the things that are not found in the box, so if the boxes have, cereal and milk and juice and peanut butter and tuna and things like that, they will not buy any of that. They'll buy the other stuff like the oil, sometimes they're able to like get their hands on meat. Sometimes they're able to get on this stuff. So the bags have rice, so it's not a big deal. Every so often they come with the grains of also beans. But that's where like the extra holes that are needed, like you said, in order for them to sustain at least a healthy diet, because not just like throwing food at it, but if we're not making them at least, providing something that they're able to sustain them, we're definitely not helping in the cause. So it is definitely a concern. The beautiful thing is that yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday before, Governor Hogan, the speaker, Adrian, I'm lacking on her name right now.
Adrian Jones.
Andrea Jones, there you go. They did sign
the relief
some
package
that's going to be coming to Marylanders, between 300 for single, 500 for couple. So it's a little help, and this is just like for Maryland, not at a federal level. So the need is definitely great. There's some things that have been moving. The Black Caucus, Latinos Caucus, and the Progressive Caucus did an excellent job of pushing and now speaking, like, for people in various levels, including our residents that have ITIN numbers, which is the equivalent to a social security number, to be able to also look into them being included. They're trying to do the same thing at the federal level, because we do have people that have not gotten one dime of even a stimulus check, and they're suffering. And the reality is now, and I am with this, the reality now is like even people that have savings, You're
Gone.
talking about it's been a year. Most people
Gone.
live paycheck to paycheck, and even the people that felt secure because they had a year of savings, that's flying out, and there's no sight, of when this is gonna end. So I think definitely allocating and advocating at the various levels to bring more resources is something that we definitely need, because there's not even enough of what we could do of what the need is out there.
Time.
Thank you. I saw your hand, Scott.
Motion to add 2 minutes. I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to speak.
I would support you 2 minutes. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would like to add 5 minutes. I'd like to say something.
Second.
All right, 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to try to pull us back down from the 30,000 foot view. So to answer the question, food security is basically defined as having sufficient access to reliable, nutritious food. And if you don't have that, then you're food insecure. If you do have that, you're food secure. So, Mayor, I heard everything that you said loud and clear, and let's do those things. Let's engage with the state. Let's engage with the county executive and others to make sure they're aware of how people in our community are being affected. And I don't just mean theoretical. I'm one of the people that's struggling financially. So this isn't theoretical for me. It's part of my reality. And I'm, relying on my partner to be able to sustain myself at this point when it comes to a lot of things financially. And I know I'm not, there's lots of people in our community that are in that boat. But that's not what this is. This is community-based food security programming. So this is an attempt not to solve the problem, not to make sure nobody in the city is going hungry. It's to give some funding to the organizations that have sprung up in our community, whether it was 30 years ago or 3 months ago, that are currently doing programs to get food to people. We all see the emails on the listserv every week of, Mounties Act was mentioned and the neighborhood food pantry was mentioned. They're asking people for donations of food and money all the time. So what I'm saying is the need for those community-based programs is very clearly there. Is there a way for us to come up with $10,000, for example, between now and the end of the fiscal year to be able to fund those directly from city coffers? So people ask specific questions. So I just said in the chat, a proposal to keep it simple. We find a way to allocate $10,000 through the end of this fiscal year to community-based entities that are based in the city of Mount Rainier, a $1,000 maximum award. Organizations can reapply every 30 days. And then we leave it to our city manager to administer the program and make decisions about who gets the money. That would be my sort of vision for how to move forward. But, I don't disagree with anything else that Mayor Miles and Selena were saying. And I look to the two of you for leadership because you're the ones that are already doing it. And quite frankly, Mayor, you're the best. You might be the best I've ever seen of anyone when you advocate for the city at the county level and at the state level. I've been on those calls with you before. I've seen you do it. So 100%, I'm here to support those efforts as well. But the intention here is to fund the community-based food security programs.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. All right, anyone else? What's your pleasure with this one, council?
Well, I really appreciated everything that Scott just said. And, what would folks think about a proposal like that he just laid on the table?
We haven't heard from staff.
Well, I'll get to staff after I have a full discussion with council, because I think Scott's discussion a minute ago was helpful. I'm not convinced, but it was helpful, and I do understand better what he's after. And Luke, if that's where you were when you were putting this together, I would want to tweak it some to make sure I'm clear on what we're going to do with it. But I also would go where Brian is now to find out, okay, staff, we're giving you something else to have to do.
Absolutely.
Who's going to do it? How are you going to do it? What kind of time? We're going to give out $10,000, but we're going to charge our cost $15,000 to put it in place and keep it running, and what those results are going to be. So I would go there after that, Brian, if you didn't mind.
And that was my first question. How do we administer it? How does that even happen? Can we do it? And I think it's important for staff to answer that question.
Okay. So then are we ready to hear from staff? May I hear from staff, please? Latasha?
Yes, ma'am. So, I think that what gives me pause is in the document, it talks about giving funding to organizations, whether they're, I don't want to mince words, but basically whether they are incorporated or not. And that gives me pause because, and I'm just going to use Mayor Miles. Let's say she wasn't Mayor Miles. Let's say she was just Melinda Miles. Melinda Miles can say, well, me and 3 of my friends, we're an organization and we give out food, but we're not a entity known by the state, so to speak, or a nonprofit. So then she said, so we need 1,000 because we give out food. Okay, so I just give her $1,000 so she can go buy food. I don't know who it's for. All I know, she can be buying food for her whole family. You know, I just think that's where, you know, because you could say, well, she has to bring receipts. Again, she can bring those receipts, but that food may not have gone to people in need per se. It could have just gone to her and her friends, families, or people that they know. One of the things that I do also kind of have reservations about is some organizations in the city feed the same people. What about those people who aren't being reached? You know, again, because just because I give it to an organization, there's still people who aren't being reached, who aren't being fed. Are these organizations reaching out to these people? And then again, like I stated previously, you know, when we did the rental assistance, it was a headache, but we did it. You know, I'm just being honest and transparent. It was a headache. You know, when people don't get it, they're mad. You know, well, why didn't I get it? You know, so that process is very tedious because we were trying to cross all our T's and dot our I's, but also because we had to report it back to the state. I would feel more comfortable if, you know, you said, hey, here's X amount of dollars, go get those gift cards. Because again, you know, you're asking Melinda, I'm just using Mayor Miles, I'm sorry, you're the only person I can see on my screen. You're asking Melinda.
I haven't seen me all night, so I'm good with that.
You know, so the other issue I have is you're asking Melinda and her friends to go and purchase food on my behalf and give it to me. You know, and like Mayor Miles mentioned earlier, where's the meat? You know, everybody's giving out canned goods and vegetables, and I get it. You want people to eat healthy. I get it. But where's the chicken? Where's the turkey? You know, where's the ham or something? But also we have so many different cultures in Mount Rainier. You know, you could give me, I'll take the box of vegetables. And I said this to Mayor Miles. My father was given a box of vegetables, right? It had kale, it had squash, and, you know, some other good things. What if I don't know how to cook? What if I don't know how to cook kale? What if I don't know how to cook squash? What if I don't even know what a squash look like? You're assuming these people know these things. You know, you're assuming that everybody eats peanut butter. You're assuming everybody eats tuna. You're assuming, you know, and I feel like if you give people a card, let them go to the store and get the things that they eat and, you know, that they can use, then that's better suited. You know, and I understand you say, well, when people are hungry, they'll eat anything. That's not necessarily true. You know, some people are like, no, I can't eat that. But I think that that's better serving. And I can give an example. I had one of the, I don't think she's a teacher, maybe like a social services coordinator or something at the school. She had reached out to me and she said, Latasha, I have a family who is in need of diapers. You know, I know the city was giving out diapers, blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, I don't have any more diapers, but what I do have is a gift card that I can give them. They can go to Safeway or Giant and purchase diapers and groceries as well. Because I'm sure if you need diapers, then you need food too. And she said, okay, that'll be great. So the family came and got the card. She sent me an email and was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. They were not only able to get diapers for, you know, a couple packs of diapers, they were also able to get some food that they didn't have, but also to supplement the food that they had been given. You know, so I'm going to stop there. But my take on this is I don't agree with it. But of course, if you tell me to do it, I'll do it and we'll implement it. But I just feel like that's so, and I'm just going to say it's so elitist to say, well, let me tell you what you're going to eat because you need. Like, I just, to me, that's just an elitist
We
thing.
got you.
Okay.
We got you. I saw Luke's hand, I saw Scott's hand, and then I'm gonna follow up, and I'm sure Selena got some on this one, because I can tell you since March 2020 something of 2020, I know I've given out a lot of food, and I've had lots of different reactions. Luke, you have the floor. Scott, you will follow. Selena, then I'll come back to you, Brian, and let's end this subject.
You guys know me well enough to know I'm about what makes sense. I hear you loud and clear, Latasha. That's why I'm a fan of the universal basic income, because I think that people know their own problems, and if you just give them money, they can figure out their own problems better than the government can. And I think it's elitist to think that we can figure out their problems through complex bureaucracies. And I agree with you here. And so if part of this program is just to give gift cards to people who need it, and that's the program we want, I'm fine with that. And that makes sense because the city, to me, that makes good sense because I don't want to create a big bureaucracy that our city doesn't have capacity for. That's why I asked the question, is this something we can administer? So if it's something that we create as a program through giving people gift cards, great. My only thought there would be these organizations, along with somebody like the mayor, along with somebody like Selena, are close to the people who need it. So use them as the funnel to get those gift cards out there would be my only recommendation. And I think that's kind of what we're already doing. So if we just need to fund more gift cards for people to help meet this need, whatever their need is, because we can't go around and know what everybody's need is, that is not possible. Then give them that assistance. And I think that helps people out. And then you're really hitting a bunch of different problems, because if their need is rental assistance, well, they can use that gift card to spend money elsewhere, so they can use the money they save on rental assistance. So no matter what it is you're doing, no matter what it is they're using, that gives them the most flexibility. And I think that's the most efficient way to provide help.
Mr. Scott Cecil?
Yeah, ditto to everything that Luke said. Basically, I'm certainly not anti-gift card. My intention here was to try to create less work for the city. And Latasha, I don't discount any of the things that you raised, but like the gift cards aren't reaching everybody either. So that's, to me, that's not a good reason not to do something. And to be quite frankly, for me personally, if regular citizen Melinda Miles or even Mayor Miles was like, yeah, I'll apply for the $1,000 and here's how many boxes of food I'm going to buy and whatever. That's what I'm saying, Latasha. I trust you as the city manager to know the difference between somebody who's scamming us and somebody who's actually doing the work. And I believe and know that you're smart enough to figure out how to get proof between the difference between the two. So for the community-based organizations that are doing this work, we know who the people are and we know that they're doing the work. So, if people want to do gift cards instead, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. It just was, I know that the gift cards then have to be administered by the city, just like with the previous program that came from other funding. So my intention here was to just give money to people who are already doing the work so they can continue doing the work, and relying on your judgment as the city manager to know the difference between who's doing the work and who isn't.
Thank you. May I go to you, Selena?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the information. I will say that at least like some of the boxes on Tuesday, they do have chicken, they do have meat, just to say that. But the other thing is like the pantry program, the way it works is like people actually walk up to the pantry and they let them know what is it that they need, and they take whatever is it that they need. So they're not just giving random stuff that they don't need or they don't use. And even with the boxes, a lot of people say, like, this is not what I need, and they take it to the pantry, because they're being conscious of the fact that we are in times where everybody needs. So maybe you don't want like peanut butter, here is, give it to the pantry, and then there's going to be a family member that could go to the yard in like 2 days, because they have quite a bit of kids that love it. But if gift cards work, it's fine. The other thing is like, I would say, even I know we had talked about this when it came to like I want a committee or something like regarding the people that were involved in this, so that we could also have guidance that what is it the things that they need the most. I mean, the city could always make the purchase of like 300 bags of maseca or oil or whatever else is needed. I know that it adds extra work to the city, so they know the food groups are being sent out, but I think gift cards to store, if that makes a little more sense. I think when I mentioned when it comes to vouching for some organizations that have been doing this for long and short term, that definitely will help. And I don't want to just throw it to you, Latasha, and be like, I think that's what you're asking us not to do, to be like, here, anybody that applies, it's open, you decide who it is based on your own criteria. It sounds like you're telling us, look, I need more direction than just that if this program is going on, because I don't want to be put in a position where I turn somebody down and then they come to us and it seems like you're the bad person in the equation, so I think that a little bit more clarity on our behalf collectively should be good. Saying that, at least I will tell you, because I spend quite a few Saturdays also with the pantry, so I know they're getting the things that people need, being conscious that there's multi-diversity on it. Some of the churches that we have here that have been helping for a long time, they're also a little cautious of the fact that we are multi-diverse community, so they're trying to make sure people are aware, that they have accessibility to the things that they might want or need. So to me, it's not a big concern for me to feel that they're not being aware of the multi-diversity, that we are as a city. They're trying their very best and even go above to make sure that the things the community does need and they will utilize are being utilized. If gift cards is what we need, even if it's like, here's $1,000, we'll give it in 2 or 3 payments, whatever it is, so that way they could give us enough to see the receipts flowing and to show us evidence, whether it's like the flyer that they're putting out together that has the city logo, because we definitely want to make sure the community knows that this money is coming from the city and not just, money, things are appearing. Because there's sometimes a discontent with the city where people feel like the city is not doing anything. So the city's not providing or the city is not helping, when we have helped a lot in various ways, but I don't think people always catch a lot of this effort, even if it's money from outside, had it to be put together and distributed by the city. So that's work time from our staff that we need to utilize, and that's part of the things that we do. But I would say if gift cards will fine, if you guys want to, instead of giving a $1,000 check, you guys want to do, X amount of cards and how do you call it? They need to give receipts for that and prove with pictures and different things like that. That's something that definitely could be built on, so that way the rest of the money is released. It's up to you, what you guys want to see in order to overcome some of these things that we have concerns about. Unless we're doing, let me see, February, March, April, May, June, unless we're doing 40,000 or at least like 20,000, I don't think we're going to be able to do the reapply every 30 days, 1,000. If it's at least, I could count maybe 5 organizations that I know of in the city. If that's the case, if they do every 30 days, we might have to put somewhere. It might not be 10,000, might be a lot more than that, because I don't think they're not going to come back and try to get more funding. So I'll stay with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've had my pound of flesh. What is your pleasure moving forward?
I haven't commented yet. Mayor.
I'm sorry. I forgot, Brian, you didn't get to speak. So sorry.
I like the gift card idea. I don't quite understand how it works, Latasha. So is it specific to like Giant or Safeway?
Yes. So we have done Giant, Safeway. John, what's the other one we did? I know we did Glut, and then we did
Aldi is nearby.
Aldi's, thank you. Aldi's.
Whole Foods.
And Whole Foods, yes.
Whole Foods? No way.
See there?
What happened was we
reached our max. Paycheck?
We reached our max with Safeway and Giant. So we had to.
I can't even shop at Whole Foods. Are you kidding me?
We ordered them. We had reached our max. So we had to go to the next available option. We bought them.
What's the one right here on Queens Chapel Road?
Aldi's.
No.
Mega Mart?
What'd you say, Selena?
Mega Mart.
No. Well, that too. No.
Price Right, compare foods.
Price Right, compare foods. Compare foods. They won't do the gift cards. It's a long story. It's a whole long story.
I don't need. Okay. Anyway, I could.
Excuse me, can I get us to talk one at a time, please?
I have the floor, I think.
Yes, you do.
And I asked Latasha a question, and I appreciate.
Yes, you did, but other folks were chiming in, so I am listening.
I appreciate the input. Anyway, I could support like 5,000 for gift cards. That would help. If it's $100, it helps like 50 different people, families. If they can buy diapers and that's what they really need at Giant or Safeway, I mean, I understand what Latasha's saying. Some people, they're vegetarian. They don't want the chicken that's available. They want tofu. So that makes sense to me. And as long as Latasha's got a system figured out for dealing with the gift cards, I don't see why we should reinvent another system. It seems like you did get them all put out. I agree with Luke. You should work with the organizations that have the contacts so they know there are gift cards that are available. So that's kind of where I am. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much. What is your path forward, folks?
This is Scott. Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
You have the floor.
I was just searching through my email to try to figure out how many times this has been on an agenda. So I get that, I was just throwing some numbers out there when I said 10,000 or whatever with that 1,000 every 30 days. I don't know I don't know how to move forward. And maybe Luke does, and I should just stop talking. I don't know how to move forward because I don't know what y'all support. So if you just don't support this, then just say that you're a no, and we'll know that we don't have 3 votes. If you do support it and you don't want to do gift cards, or you don't want to do gift cards and you want a certain money, tell us what that is. Forgive me for saying it that way, but back in January, when I was like, I don't want to spend $3,000 in City Hall, you were like, well, what's your alternative? Well, my alternative is not to spend the money, right? So if you're for this, how can we get you to a yes? Because we're already there. And the comment I wanted to make, Mayor, was I wish I had noticed this before, but when I was searching my email, I saw that the county actually has a food security task force that just met virtually last week. Mm-hmm. So I needed to go back and watch that part of the meeting so I can understand what they're talking about. Because it may just turn out that while me and Luke and others have good intentions, maybe the reality is this is just not an appropriate program for the city to do. And I'm totally willing to accept that. I'm just trying to make something happen. So if the thing that should happen is that we leave it to the county or whoever to do this, then that's okay too. If we can get anyone else here to a yes, even if it's just on gift cards, that's what we need to know in order to move forward.
Thank you so much. And yes, there was the task force, and yes, there is a report. There are also, I sent to all of you 2 weeks ago a book from the county that lists all of the services that are out there and available, including food service and food programs. I certainly hope you all will look at that. Scott, I think I can go with your last suggestion. If people would like to say, and we can't vote in this session, but if there's consensus on anything in here, let me try 2 things. Those who are in consensus of the gift cards, let me back it up. The program is on the floor for food security. How many of you are in support of item 8 as presented in the document by Luke? Can I get a show of hands? I need to see everybody on the screen, people.
I think there's this. Instead of just, it sounded like there was consensus moving towards $5,000 for gift cards. It sounds like that's where the consensus was moving.
If that's the consensus, is that a consensus so I can see everybody's hand or something so we can give Latasha some direction?
That's where I am.
There are 3 of us. That'll make 4 of us. Latasha. Maybe there's 5 of us. Latasha, what is your take on being able to do that? Because I would tell you, if I support this, or even if I get outvoted and you got your 3 votes, please don't give them gift cards to Wegmans. Can you kind of keep it where we can do a little longer spending of the 5,000?
We will. That was just in haste.
You don't have to haste. It's a direction. Just take and walk with it.
It'll be Safeway, Aldi's, and Giant.
All
Can
right.
you make Mega Mart as well, please? Because they buy a lot of things there.
I'm not sure that they will give us gift cards.
All I'm okay. Let's not debate it. Let's not
Thank
debate.
you.
Let's keep the money where we get the biggest bang for our buck. And if that's the consensus, let's write it up in such a way so that at our next meeting we can vote on it, get it off the table, and do something with it. But my point right now is I don't want us all scatter over the place. Scott is absolutely right. Let's do something. And the quickest way to get something done is to say 3 of us agree with this, 1 of us don't, the other one want to modify it or whatever. Brian, throw your hand up again and have the floor.
Glut, definitely. I think we should try to keep it as close to home as we can to help the businesses around us.
Support us, yes.
And I know we can't limit it. You can't say Giant has to be the Giant in wherever, but there are Giants and Safeways close by. But Glut definitely is a local business. I don't know if there are other, Selena, the one that you mentioned up in Queens Chilham, which
Mega Mart.
Thank you. Those kind of places I would try to support nearby. That's all I'm going to say.
And I think that's the idea. Let's keep our businesses open too as we move forward with this. So we have a consensus. Somebody, Luke, no, not somebody, Luke, try to capture what you heard. Let's have it in some form of a resolution so that we can move forward at the next meeting. I know there are 3 folks in support of it. All right? I'm ready to move. Thank you so much. Let's go to rental assistant grant.
Hi, this is Selena. So just to clarify the one, I'm definitely in support, Luke. So, so I put this in the agenda. One of the 3 things we've been asked a lot when it comes to the community is help for rental assistance. Aside from food and the diapers, rental assistance ranks in the top, number 2 things that they ask for. So I wanted to bring it up to council for us to discuss if this is something the city wants to do. I know we had it with the CARES package. There's still a lot of people that are in need of this. And my concern is we could provide all the food in the world, but after a certain point, they are in need of rental assistance. So I'm bringing this up to the table to figure out if you guys want to discuss this. Is something you guys want to pursue? And if it is, what do you guys think?
I'm going to start with you on that one, Luke, and then I'm going to go to Scott, and I'm going to go to Brian.
I need to pass for the current moment. I was writing up my to-dos off that last conversation. So I'm sorry.
Right.
You tasked me with something and I just started writing.
Thank you. Let's go to Scott. I will come back.
I like the idea in theory. I'm guessing the city manager is going to tell us that we can't afford it. Because I don't know how much. It also depends on how much assistance you were suggesting, and it's okay if you don't have an answer to that because I don't either. But 1,000 people getting $1,000 in assistance in 1 month is $1 million. So I just don't know what we could afford to do with city money. So if it's to spend city money, then I don't think I support anything. But I'm open to the idea if we can find a way to pay for it.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Brian.
Celine, I thought you were talking about there was state or federal money that we could go after to do this. 3/4 of our population is rental. Oh my God. And then how would you decide who gets it and who doesn't? That would be really complicated. But I thought you were talking about there was some grant out there or some federal, state, county program that you were suggesting that we apply for money. So maybe I just was not thinking along the same lines.
I personally would not support a rental assistant grant program in Mount Rainier unless you had a coffer of at least $5 million to start with. The rental tsunami is going to hit, and it's going to blow us out the water. The federal government doesn't have a clue on how they're going to help prevent that happening. It's going to happen. And it's just a matter of the courts opening up and taking the cases, and people are going to be evicted. It's going to happen. And I just don't see where the city would have enough money to be a drop in the bucket to stop folks from being put out. I did listen today. The federal government is thinking about extending holding mortgages up through March. I think March 15th was the day. They don't have a clue. So it's the issue, Selena, and I'm not belittling it in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But this city has a grand total of what, $7 million if we lucky. Brian just said if we did $1,000 a person for 1 month, we'd be broke. And we even considered the fact that, and then this is one of the things I've done when I've done programs where I paid for people, and I paid for a lot of folks' rent in the city of Mount Rainier through the churches and out of my pocket. One of the criteria I've always used, if I pay for your rent this month, and I know you're not going to be able to pay for it next month and the following month, I'm not giving up the money. It's not this. It's a temporary stopgap. It doesn't help that person unless there's some assurance that they're going to be able to pay it the following month and the following month after that. I just don't know. I just don't know how to tackle something like this. I am definitely open for ideas. To your question, Brian, I've been on the phone with the governor. I've been on the phone with some of the other mayors around the state, and I will be online with all of the mayors in Prince George's County on the 4th Thursday. We have the issue. We don't have a solution, and their budgets won't cover doing rental assistance. And that we don't know any programs out there that will. Selena, you got something to offer us to go after? Because I'll go after anything.
Yeah, at this point, I'm worrying for the new relief package to pass with urgency, even if it means we're writing a letter, and I could put a letter together saying, hey, we desperately need this money to pass, and pass very, very fast, because right now the moratorium, it's not for everybody. It's until March, and it has to be very selective on who fits in it.
That's right.
I know they're trying to push it. I don't know if Biden decided today or within this week they're going to do it. But the point of it is maybe that could be part of the advocacy that we could do as a city as well, right? To say we definitely need funding to the government and stuff like that collectively, especially if the mayors get together, different cities get together. I put it here because it is a concern. I put it here in case we want to allocate, even if it's $10,000, say. The process is already set. I mean, partially, because remember, we were doing some rental assistance last year with the CARES Act. So there is a possibility to utilize a modified version of the form, maybe not give as much as, because definitely if we give $1,000, we might not have enough for everybody. Even if it's 10,000, that's only 10 people. And even if we put 30,000 for, it might not help. But I definitely wanted to put it here to figure out if there's something, one, we knew about when it comes to any resources, right? Because I haven't been able to find any. Number two, figure out if we want to allocate any money for this, even if it's $10,000 from the city, so we could help some. I think that's something. Scott, I think I saw a question. I mean, we could always direct the grant writer to look for it. I mean, we do have a grant writer for that, and we could definitely direct her to do that. But even if we put as a city some money aside, even if it's $10,000 to get some help, and then direct Latasha, if she could have the grant writer work on trying to figure out if there's any funding available for any of it, that's something we definitely could do as well.
All right. Anybody else? I see your hand, Scott.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Selena, I'm so sorry that I was texting you a question while you were talking. I thought somebody else was going to speak next, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you for answering my question. I was just doing some Googling here, and because I know I had heard a news report, and it looks like, so who knows what Congress is going to pass, but President Biden's recovery plan extends the rental eviction moratoriums and a moratorium on foreclosures through September of 2021. So if that passes, theoretically, this will be sort of a non-issue, although I know based on what you just said, it sounds like not everyone qualifies for the moratorium. I don't really understand how that works. But if some version of the president's plan gets passed, it looks like at least we'll be kicking the can down the road a little bit. But I just wanted to say, I don't know who should take the lead here. Maybe it's Mayor Miles, maybe it's all of us collectively. But it sounds like where our energy should be directed is we need to get in touch with our congressional delegation from Maryland and our senators and our congressmen and congresswomen from Maryland and be like, what are y'all doing to get this recovery package through? Because, we've got this rental crisis coming on top of our budget crisis. So, I see the mayor shaking her head. We need to get one of the five of us needs to be a point person. We need to get some letters written, and we need to get on the phone and talk to our delegation at Congress and see, where things are right now.
Absolutely. All right.
And Mayor, I'm so sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Mayor, and anyone else who wants to, let's get together. Let's put our heads together and get that going. I know everyone here has lobbying experience, myself included. So let's just get on the phone with our delegation and find out where things are with the recovery package so that we at least have an idea of what's coming down the pike from the federal government.
I'm going to invite you to join me, Scott. Been doing it for the longest. I talk to them at least almost every day or every other day. I need all of our voices though being heard, which is what I think you're saying. So I welcome the addition. Selena, I give you kudos because I know you've been out there doing that beat the bull too. So yeah, they need to hear from us collectively. The governor needs to hear from us because they passed a relief package today or yesterday too. But it's not going to help all of our residents. It's going to help some. So yeah, let's do that. Any other word or comments that you'd like to make on the rental assistance? Thank you. Let me go to number 10, the CERT board vacancy.
So
you put that on there, and I am so glad you did.
And I'm going to defer to you, Mayor, because this has been your brief. And I just wanted to get it on an agenda because some of the former CERT board members, because their terms have expired, I just wanted to get it before the council because we really need to deal with this. But I basically was put on there because I wanted the mayor to talk about it as much as anything. But we have to deal with this, and they've all expired. And Mayor, I'm going to let you talk about that.
I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it very sparsely right now because I'm working on a package to put together and to reignite our CERT board. It is critical that we do this. There's some things coming down from FEMA that we need to be in line with if we're going to get any of our money back when we have these crises like September the 10th. And our very active CERT board just kind of went to wherever it went, and we need to re-engage. And that the members that have been trained, we need to try to get them back. That is something I am working on. I have spoken to some of them, and hopefully when I come back to you at the next work session, which is when I will be prepared to talk about it, I will be there. Some of them don't want to be reappointed. Some of them will be reappointed. And we need to just kind of put life back in it. But thank you for putting it on there, Brian.
So I would just say we need to put it out on social media and other places to advertise what a lot of people don't even know what CERT is.
Brian, if you recall when I put it together the last time, it was on social media. I was knocking on doors. I was making phone calls.
Not doubting.
I have every intention of going after the 32 people that started out on it about 6-7 years ago and to get some of them back because they've already been trained. They're also changing how they work now. And with the new, Luke kind of talked about it, the person he brought to the meeting tonight about the changes in the climate, the changes in water levels, the fact that storms are now flooding, not the little sprinkles. We have a crisis coming that we need to kind of get ahead of, and that CERT team need to be ready and active to go forward. So give me to next month, please.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to offer this one to Selena, but I know Scott started this warpath some 2-3 years ago about having a different class of tax for small apartments. but Selena has it on the agenda. And Scott, I'm going to ask you to kind of fill in your thinking on it as we move forward. Selena, you have the floor.
Yeah, this is Selena. We actually discussed this originally when we made the 5th class and we didn't act on it. That's the reason why I make sure this is like maybe 3 years ago. But I wanted to make sure it was in the agenda so that we did not miss any deadlines if they're coming and we make a decision on it. This is not at no point saying there'll be a difference of changing in tax when it comes to the 6 tax. Is just creating it at this point in order for it to allow us to have the smaller apartments not fall under the same tax class as the bigger apartments. And by small apartments, I was thinking about 150 units and below, in comparison to some of them that have like 600, 700, 900 units. They definitely fall into a different ballpark. So I put it here for open for discussion. If we decide to move forward, that way we could direct Latasha for this to take place and be able to meet any deadline that we see for coming and have it part of our new budget, FY22.
And I really appreciate you making it happen, just like Brian did with that cert piece up there. Excuse me. I think we kind of all agreed that we probably wanted that class for the small apartment. Excuse me. Excuse me. But we didn't go ahead and take the action to make it happen. I think we got right to the fence, and because we were in the middle of budget, we did not go ahead and create that class. So please help me, Brian, or any one of you. Did we do that, the 5 classes through an ordinance?
Yeah.
So we just simply need to amend the ordinance and put it in there with the definitions. Could somebody check that, Latasha? Because we beat the thing to death. We beat that one to death. I know, well, maybe, I don't know. But at that point in time, I think we were close to consensus of doing it. And I don't remember exactly why we didn't go ahead and cross the fence with it.
We'll look into it, but I'm pretty sure it has to be an ordinance and then you'll just do an amendment.
I'm almost certain that it is too. And if that's the case, would you draft something and have it ready for us so we can have at least that first reading? Because we're headed to budget season. Whether we like it or not, we're in it.
Yeah, it would have to be for next year though, because we have to send the taxes to the county, and we sent that.
Totally understand that. We totally understand that, but that I think was the hold up last time we didn't do it. Now we're at crossing the fence again. We need to get it done so that in future years it'll be there and we don't have to have this discussion. Did I see your hand, Brian?
Yeah, I'm not at 150. I mean, those are corporations.
Excuse me, I didn't say 150. That's what Selena threw out there.
Yeah,
but we need to come up with the number.
I'm going to go for 25.
Let me just say this. We need to come up with that number.
Yeah.
And that number, I would also say, it's not just the number. Because if I look down here at Rainier Manor has 150, 140, whatever that number is. They're owned by Humphrey Management. I'm not finna give them that tax class. Sorry. Okay? I was thinking when we were at consensus, and as we discussed it, we were talking about the person who owned the 25 or whatever number of buildings that the man owned down there on Rhode Island Avenue, where he bought 5 apartments. That's all he got. The Singer building, I'm not even sure I would give it to them. They have 12 apartments in there, but a whole corporation owns half of the buildings in my city.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to come up with some parameters that make that work for me. Or otherwise, I would be voting against that. I saw your hand, Luke.
Yeah, I think we were talking about like 10 or less, or 5, because our focus was on, not just small apartment buildings, but houses that were converted to apartments, and have been for a while in the city. So, and I don't know if it was something Scott brought up with the reporting of rent increases or another conversation we were having. But I think the number 10 is sticking out in my head because I know when it comes to DC, if you have 10 or less units, it might be 14 or less. You are not subject to DC's rent increases. So I think that's where that conversation went. So it sort of made sense to have a number like that. Either whether it's below 15 or below 10, I forget what it was. Anyways.
And I hear that loud and clear. But I'm going to also say, if you happen to be Humphrey Management and you bought an apartment in Mount Rainier and you only have 10 units, that class ain't going to work for you. So I think we need to really understand what we're offering when we say what that small apartment complex is and consists of and who owns it. If I can't say that name out loud. If a real big corporation owns 10 apartment buildings in Mount Rainier, they're not small apartments for me.
Mayor?
I see your hand, Scott. And I heard you, Selena.
Yeah, thanks. Man, I thought this thank you, Mayor. I thought this was going to be so cut and dry, and then you just made a bunch of good points, and so I just have a lot to think about now. But yes, I appreciate you acknowledging that. I think in my first ever meeting, I talked about this, and in fact voted against the budget in FY 2020 because you're right. This was being talked about before I was on the council. It's one of the reasons why I ran for council, because I came to one of the meetings as a resident and saw the city manager present a plan, the former city manager, present a plan to raise the taxes on the apartments to 97 cents per, which was a huge increase, right? So I was like, what on earth are they doing? Or not they, what on earth is this person proposing? And that was really one of the first things that anyway. But I appreciate you giving me a shout out. I realized that this was being talked about before I got here, but that was 3 years ago, as somebody pointed out, and nothing has happened. So I appreciate Selena getting it. Thank you. Great job getting on the agenda for now, because right now is the time we need to be talking about it. So I have a question for the city manager. Do you know, and it's okay if you don't know off the top of your head, you can send it to an email later. When would we need to make the change to create the new tax class so that it'll be effective for the FY 2022 fiscal year?
Before you would need to do it between now and like the summer. I don't know. I can't remember the exact month. I can't remember if we have to submit it to them.
It has to be done before June 30.
Okay. I was just so basically the deadline is the end of this fiscal year. So we should just think of it as the deadline is whenever we vote on our budget, basically. Right? Okay. I won't take any more time other than just to say, Mayor, I hadn't really been thinking of, so even though this has been on our minds for several years, I haven't really been thinking about, like, what about huge mega corporation? Maybe their building only has 8 units, but, do they really deserve a different tax class? Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to repeat everything that you said, but you've given me something to think about, and I want to talk with you about it some more and discuss this with everyone else more. And I just got to say, it's not really important for me. If people want to take credit for having this idea, that's fine. I'll take credit for it when we vote yes. I mean, that doesn't matter to me, but I do appreciate you shouting me out, Mayor.
All right. Anyone else? All right, we have beat this horse, and for the record, it was 9:50. Selena, I heard you. I remember I said after Scott, I heard you, so you definitely have the floor.
So I would say I would like to put this in the next work session so that way it doesn't drop out of the radar. So I will
put it on the agenda
for a month and figure out where we want to be. And this is the reason why I don't have a document in front of me, because my first objective was for us to talk about it, whether we're interested or not. If we saw something we were more interested on, or how to define it better, because to me, small departments, like I said, 150, just to throw a number out there so we could start thinking. But I think a lot of things that were brought up, this is the reason why it was in the agenda, because I didn't figure out it wasn't as easy as or cut dry as it was. So I'm glad it's there now. We have a month to think about it and a couple of months to make up our mind, but at least the ball is rolling now. So thank you for all the feedback on it, because it got me also thinking when it comes to legislation.
Thank you so very much. I look forward to see what you all bring back. All right, let's go down to I guess I'm at number 12, gas-powered leaf blowers. Scott.
Yes. So I hope you've had a chance to read this, council members. If you haven't, I understand because it's probably 6 or 7 pages. So if you haven't, that's okay. Just please take the time to read it. I'll give a quick summary. The idea of this actually came to me from my next door neighbor. You guys have heard me say a bunch of times, I live really close to Kaywood. So once every 2 weeks, I get the lovely sound of the leaf blowers at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, which is when they do the groundskeeping for that apartment complex. So I just want to be transparent that I have a personal stake in doing something like this, and I just want to be transparent about that. So this proposal is very similar to what has happened in a couple of hundred other cities across the U.S. And actually, Hyattsville, one of Hyattsville's council members, is working on a similar proposal right now, and I actually emulated his proposal and scaled it for Mount Rainier. So it's just a quick summary. This would phase out the use of gas-powered leaf blowers over the course of several years. It would also include an educational campaign and communication campaign component spearheaded by the Green Team, who is supportive of the proposal, talking to people about the potential risks associated with using this, both for personal health and safety and the environmental impact. The proposal then goes on to give a case for a ban, which includes noise pollution, health and safety, impact on wildlife. And then the next part of the proposal gives a sub-proposal for a trade-in program, which would allow for residents or even small businesses up to a certain cap to be able to trade in their gas-powered leaf blower to Public Works in exchange for a rebate where they could buy an electric or battery-powered one in order to replace it. And just with the proposal that I put out there, which is obviously negotiable if people are interested in this, it would cost, as written, would cost about $24,500 over the course of the next 3 fiscal years. You can see the breakdown there. The reason it's broken down that way is because of the way I've proposed it, is that there are phases to the program where, if I remember correctly, it would start out by saying you can't use these on Sundays, and then it would, after 6 months, it would say you can't use these on Sundays and holidays, and then it would eventually lead to, phase into a full prohibition. I would also say that in my opinion, I don't think the penalty for disobeying this should be that you get fined or something like that. I think that we just give some outreach to you saying, hey, the city's moving in the direction of banning these. And after, whatever it is, July 31st, 2023, I'm making up that date because I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not on the screen. Maybe it's 2024, but in any event, I don't think we should necessarily fine people for this. I'm not really interested in that piece. It's really about changing behavior. And then the rest of the proposal has a half a dozen or so frequently asked questions about this sort of proposal and attempts to answer those. So, I know sometimes I've made the mistake of coming here with a bunch of details and then people hated it and we had to change everything. And then I've also showed up with an idea and people hated that because there were no specifics. So hopefully I've landed somewhere in the middle. And I'm really eager to hear what you guys have to say. I will be candid that I have had people reach out to me and say, I hate this idea. This is government overreach. And there are people who hate it. But I will say that for every one person who has sent me a message like that, there were 3 or 4 that sent me supportive messages. But that also could just be the audience of people that I communicate with.
Thank you so very much. Let me go to Brian.
Oh, thank you so much, Mayor.
You are so welcome. I didn't come back to somebody the last time when I promised. And when I asked if anybody wanted to speak, they got quiet and I went to the next agenda. So I don't want to say a thing and let me move.
So I did read, and Scott, thank you. You're right. Sometimes you get criticized for one way or the other. This one's detailed. I read it. I'm interested in it, but I'm also looking at the reality. I mean, I have never had anybody complain to me about the sound of, but I don't live near the apartment complexes where probably that's where the commercial landscapers are using these. Occasionally my next door neighbor uses one and I mean, about a month ago, it went on for like an hour. They have a landscape company come in and do their yard for the leaves. I could certainly support Public Works not using gas-powered leaf blowers. if that's the way we want to go. But I mean, I would have to have like, I don't know, like 50 or 60 constituents support this before I would, because I do see it as a bit of overreach. I think we have people, I just don't think that many people in the neighborhood have gas-powered leaf blowers. Most people rake their leaves, I think. So I need to see the problem other than the apartment complexes. I think the other way to go would be to do something to the noise ordinance that they can't use them before a certain time. Because yeah, it would be very annoying to have somebody using one at 8 o'clock in the morning next door. I would agree with that. So I guess I'm kind of on the fence. It's like I need to really understand there's really a problem. I get the air pollution and all that part, but you know, it's mostly about the noise. I mean, I think people in my neighborhood here don't necessarily think about the carbon emissions. That's something for the federal EPA to deal with. Yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. But I do appreciate the detail. This one, very detailed. Thank you.
Time.
Let me go
We
to
had
Luke.
time.
All right, now I need to add 5-10 minutes to this because Luke hasn't spoken, Selena hasn't spoken, and I certainly plan to speak on this one.
Yeah, we didn't have enough time for 5 minutes. Was no way enough.
Well, he didn't expect to get into it very deep this time, so this time we choose to. You have the floor, Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. I really like the phased-in approach, Scott. I think that's really good, and I like the idea of this being more of a coaxing people to come into compliance than slapping people on the wrist for not being in compliance. And maybe there's something more we can do there to prevent or to address, I think, the interest that Brian expressed, which is probably something that's shared by a lot of people. I like the phased-in approach to the budgeting. My suggestion there would probably be to have it be an equal amount every year just for planning purposes and probably start a little bit lower. And then in year one, if we have to adjust based on who's coming back, we can. So maybe like $5,000 and just have that be an annual thing. But I was Brian raised some good points about the problem. And I think the problem isn't just the noise, Brian. I think it's a lot of the issues with the exhaust that gets spewed out by those leaf blowers. And I think there was another thing that the Green Team was interested in, which is this coalesces nicely with something that the Green Team's trying to push. And I know the Tree Commission has talked about a little bit, which is putting all our leaves out on the curb isn't probably the best use of our leaves. Leaves are a wonderful mulching tool. I rake all my leaves and just kind of squish them into little 1 foot by 1 foot areas, set them down on the ground, and they stop all the weeds. I don't have problems with weeds growing. I don't have to purchase mulch. So as part of this educational outreach, it's move away from gas lawn blowers, move away from bagging your leaves, which is a pain, and we'll teach you how to use them as mulch. It's good for the environment. It's great for bugs, all this other things. So I think there's a lot of things you can leverage here to move this program forward. And maybe that helps cut a little bit of the bite out of the government overreach argument.
Thank you, Selena.
Yeah, I'm a little on the fence, but I have a question, and maybe I missed it in the proposal. How much money are we allocating for the city to get rid of this equipment? Because a lot of those tools is not something you could just pick it up and throw them in the trash. You will have to take them somewhere to be able to dispose of them correctly. If not, I feel like we're in one end, we're trying to save the environment. The other end, we just completely not help it, so that's something that maybe if this moves forward, that needs to be added into the proposal, not just the $200 to be given back to the community, but also how much money would it cost for Public Works to discard this? And are we thinking of something along this line, kind of like the electronic recycling 4 times a year? Because I do not see Public Works having been put in a position where they have to store this equipment to get rid of it. Then I could see Public Works become very junky very quickly, depending how many people sign on to it. The other thing is definitely the whole, even if you want to break it down, apartment-based versus home, or separate between the noise ordinance when it comes to certain time, but to, you know, I don't know how silent the green ones are. To say like they will not make any noise or not, I cannot tell you. I will have to research into that. But I do have a concern, if you guys could look into that, how much it will cost for the city to discard of this items. That definitely will help me get to where it needs to get. I think, thank you for listening. I know I recall receiving a message from one of the neighbors regarding other tools, not just the leaf blower, but they were talking about the other equipment. So that's definitely good. But yeah, I will stay at that. If you guys could gather the information so we have a realistic price of what it will cost the city to do this, and the noise ordinance and the different things that, like, you know, Brian brought up, and let's figure out if we could separate certain pieces to make sure it reflects on what the real problem is and what could potentially do. And in reality, is this a problem that's majorly affecting the city of Mount Rainier, or is it just more like an apartment building and the mega companies that come, or is it more like because there are costs associated with it, not just a rebate fee that is going to be given to the residents?
Excuse me. Thank you, Selena. And you almost hit one of the issues I have in there. First of all, thanks for the work, but this is one I would definitely vote against. Number one, what about gas lawnmowers?
Mm-hmm.
We got more gas lawnmowers than we got gas leaf blowers. Most of us can't afford the gas leaf blower. Number one. Number two, what about Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission when they come in here with their gas leaf blowers and gas lawnmowers or whatever to cut their grasses or whatever? Are we trying to find some way to penalize small-time residents who might have gotten lucky enough to get a leaf blower? Luke, you're absolutely right. I don't rake my leaves and I don't bag them because from the country, we know that if you leave the leaves out there, they have to go back and enrich the soil, etc. So a lot of us don't even have gas blowers or gas lawnmowers. Selena, they all make noise. Trust me. I've had a gas lawnmower and I just got to the point I just quit. I just don't bother with that. The other part of that, to me, yes, there is pollution. Even when you think about the gas mowers, the other kind of mowers is either going to be noise pollution or whatever, carbon, whatever is going to be going out there. I just don't think that this has a place in Mount Rainier at this moment. If every single household had a gas blower and a gas lawnmower, I think we'd have a major problem. But I don't think the problem is big enough for us to have to legislate it at this point in time. Mr. Netler, your hand went up and I said something, so you have the floor.
Right. So, Mike, I guess you stated my point better than I did. So I don't think there are enough gas-powered leaf blowers in the city of Mount Rainier that it really makes any major impact on carbon emissions
at all.
I'm not doubting that the apartment complexes have landscaping companies that use them, but I would guess that the vast majority of my neighborhood here do not have, they rake their leaves. I also want to make the point, and Latasha, I would like Mr. Kamali to confirm this. Our leaves that we rake up, they are taken to the compost facility in College Park. At least they used to be. And I could be wrong. Maybe we take them to the dump now. But they are composted.
Yes.
So the green team is not correct in saying that they aren't composted, because they are. And so I would like confirmation of that from staff, that we take our leaves that we collect. And if you all want to decide that Public Works should use electric, or can't use electric, I don't even know, battery powered, I guess.
Gonna have to go, they ain't plugging up into my stuff to use electric.
That's a different story, but and I could go for that if there was such a thing as a battery powered one that's powerful enough. But I think we have a machine that goes along and collects the leaves from the curb. And I will readily admit, I grab my neighbor's bagged leaves. They never get to the city because I take them and put in my own compost pile.
I do the same thing.
Amen. Okay. So here's where you all, if I heard everybody correctly, It's a great idea, and I think it's well put together. I will to say the same thing Luke said too. I like the gradual introduction of the process. If you decide to go that way over a period of years, and I'm glad to see there's no hammer like we did with the trees. When we're going to take over people's yards if they cut a tree on their yard. But I appreciate the approach that we're not talking about using this as a money maker in terms of a process. So that's all good. I also thank Selena for the idea and the thought that, well, what are we going to do with all these gas blowers, 10 of them, 15 of them, with Public Works? Are they going to keep them, dispose of them? Who wants them? Are we going to sell them and get some money out of them? Then are we going to give the money back to the people? I don't know. I'm just not there. Totally not there. And I'm open to any other comments or second thoughts before I move to the next item.
This is Scott. Can I close this out? I mean, provided nobody else has a response.
It's your piece. Have your way with it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the discussion, and because I've been thinking about this for months and months and months, and Gabriel's been waiting for me to put this on the agenda, and it's finally here. Thank you for everything that y'all just said. I'm not gonna respond to everything now. I'm just gonna quickly repeat back what I heard to make sure I didn't miss anything. So Brian, I'm gonna get back to you about just defining the problem and making sure that we understand what it is and that there even in fact is a problem. And then where does the noise ordinance, I think you and Selena both raised that, where does that potentially tie in here? Luke, I'm gonna get back to you about potentially changing the way that it's allocated in the budget and spreading it out a little bit more. And also, I want to just emphasize that the Green Team has agreed to be a big part of this, as has Luke. I forgot to mention that earlier. I begged him to be my co-sponsor, and he said he would. Also, just a friendly reminder to everybody, phase 1 of the proposal would be for the city to start doing this if they are using gas-powered leaf blowers.
Yeah.
And I would just point out to you that that is in line with the greenhouse gas resolution that we all just voted to pass a couple of months ago. So I want to let you know that this also didn't come out of nowhere. It's directly a response to that resolution. So my goal is to at least once a quarter be advancing a piece of legislation that's in accordance with the resolution that all 5 of us voted for. And then Selena had questions about what do we do with the ones we collect. She's rightfully concerned about storage and how we discard of them. I would point out, because Hyattsville is looking likely that they're going to pass this, maybe we can have them discard of them for us, since they're going to be doing it anyway and they're much bigger than we are. I also have some studies I'll share with all of you, because I hear the what about other equipment. Gas-powered leaf blowers are uniquely polluting. They use a 2-stroke engine, which is unique among non-industrial level equipment in terms of what people can buy. So they're 3 to 9 times more polluting than a lawnmower, for example. So I didn't single out this one piece of machinery for no reason. And I didn't share these already because I thought it would be overwhelming, but I've got a bunch of studies that show why cities should do this. And now that we've gotten to this point, I'll share the studies with all of y'all as well. And if you guys think I missed any of your major questions, please let me know offline. Otherwise, when this makes its way back to an agenda in a month or two, I'll be prepared to answer some of those questions, and I'll try to do so ahead. Thanks for giving me so much time.
All right. Thank you so very much. Brian, I think you are up again. Brian,
yeah, I'm here, and my computer is not somehow gaining power. I hope I don't fade. Let me just check my cord here. For some reason I'm not getting power. So just give me a second. Sure, I'm gonna lose. I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, hopefully I won't run out of battery. So this has been on the agenda before, and still hoping I don't run out of battery here. There it goes. Okay, I'm good. So this went back to the city attorney. She had originally put it in as a charter amendment, which I think we disagreed with. She's now gone with the ordinance and the budgeting. Basically, all it does is any fees that are collected for a specific purpose, or any pass-throughs like the bike co-op and the garden, kindergarten, will be, instead of disappearing at the end of the fiscal year, will be put into the proposed budget for the following year for us to consider. Doesn't mean we can't alter it. It just gives them the satisfaction of knowing that whatever was collected for specific purposes doesn't disappear unless the council consciously does that. It just directs staff to put whatever amount is in there at the end of the fiscal year to put into the proposed budget for the following fiscal year. If you all are not interested in doing that, I have no, ponying this horse race. This is because we've had complaints from various committees and commissions, and that's where we are with that. And so it's before you. The city attorney has vetted it, and we can do this. It's not, we can't roll it over, so to speak, even though we called it that. It's basically reminding us that these amounts were there for specific purposes at the end of the fiscal year, and the city manager or finance director will propose them in the next budget. That's it.
All right. Thank you so very much. I read those emails. That was before I had my disaster at my house. So I think it's something that will at least once and for all kind of put us in the position of doing something with that money as opposed to starting out new every year. So I'm going to go from you to Scott again because you had the item. I'm already in Ward 2. Let's hear from you, Scott. Then I'm going to go to Selena, and then I'm going to go to Luke.
I'm very open to this. Anyone who's watching, including the four of you, throw out everything I said last meeting because I was confused about what we were even talking about. I actually had a bad dream about it because I was like, I feel anyway. I have a whole bunch of anxiety about what happened last meeting. I was like, what are y'all even talking about? And I was wrong. I was not paying close enough attention. So I'm sorry. So Brian, I read through this earlier today before the meeting, and I understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I actually like it. So I think I was leaning no before because I didn't understand it. Now I understand it better, and I think it makes a lot of sense. As long as the mayor and council will be able to vote during the budget process about, and I know it's not a rollover, but I think I don't support a blanket. I don't support a blanket. Tree Commission didn't spend the money. Now it's going to be in their line item in the proposed budget. Only if we get to vote yes or up or down. So I, once again, thank you for putting this together. I am in support, and I don't think I have any changes, but if that changes, I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you. All right, Selena.
Yeah, thank you for putting it together. I didn't see if you went ahead and added a cutoff period, because if not, our budget will not be balanced at the end of June. That's one of the items that I did raise on the last meeting. When it came to after this point, they should not be allocating their money. So that way, when we approve the budget, it is with real numbers and not what we think potentially they have there. I understand for the Tree Commission, it could definitely be the way I see it is not even going to be the way I see it. It's not even going to be in addition to their budget has to be put separately, could be housed under Public Works as the department that does the work for the trees in the city, and then put as the line item for them to utilize and not the committee itself, because I feel like then are we really using it for the things that we say we're going to use it? We're giving a false illusion that that committee budget is going to continue to rise if they don't use it all in comparison to other committees. For the art committee makes sense to me because it's like it's something that they'll carry on to make sure they maintenance through the years. But how much are we going to eventually put? Is there a cap how many of this money could get rolled over? Or are we going to get to the point that every year we're going to be putting $20,000 aside and it's going to eventually come up to $100,000? And how much of the budget will occupied before we have all this money tied up? So I need to make sure it has freedom, to be able for us to be able to make that change of what the money potentially could be needed. For the garden committee, I will tell you this, they collect smaller fees. Like my understanding is like last year during budget season, one of the reasons why a lot more money was allocated to them was because they were going to either reduce the fee or like have quite a few lots that they will have free to community members from the apartments to be able to utilize. I don't know if that happened, but I do know the city puts extra money, part of their budget aside to be able to help them purchase certain things. So to me, that committee on its own, I feel like might not fit into what you're discussing, this, when it comes to the trio of the arts, but that's my opinion. So I definitely need to see a little more definition when it comes to that, because I don't want it to get ourselves so tied up that now we have a big chunk of the budget put into this without analyzing it before we approve it. So that's where I will stay with some of my concerns with it.
All right, Luke.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, I love everything you did with it, except the maintenance fees that the Arts Commission is setting aside out of their budget is not in the legislation. So it's not really a fee collected by the city. It's the commission not spending their line item and keeping that money for future maintenance. So I don't know how you would say that in the legislation, but that would be my requested change, is to somehow capture that.
Luke, I know the city attorney had cited certain sections of the code. Did that cover that?
It didn't look like it when I was reading it. It didn't.
Right.
I'll look back at it. It says, such proposed appropriations shall include, but not limited to, funds collected pursuant to 3105, 4200B, 12B11, and 12B. Is 3105, as such sections may be amended or recodified, and as pass-through accounts for the Mount Rainier Community Garden and Mount Rainier Bike Co-op. And so I'll
check it.
Okay, thanks.
But you do realize, even if it's in the proposed budget, doesn't mean the council can't change it.
Totally. Yep. I understand that. Yep. All good.
Discretionary. Discretionary. Okay. All right.
All good. Yep.
Brian, I like it. I didn't find excuse me, a lot of disagreement with what you've written. I'm just not exactly sure that after you're gone and this current counselor gone, will anybody else understand how this is really supposed to work?
That's why it's in an ordinance.
Yeah, well, that don't make it always work. We've had things in ordinance, we've done them wrong and then found out later. So that's all I offer on this one.
I can't guarantee you anything.
I know that. I'm totally clear. Thank you so much. Any other comments? All right. Again, Brian, thanks for doing that. We are down to the shot spotter. And I don't need 15 minutes. But I did have a great conversation with Acting Chief Austin. And if I got this correct, I don't think he liked this. I think I like it even more. I've done some more little homework on it. And I think that the city will be doing a great disservice not to offer this as another way of helping our police department identify the random shootings and where they're coming from. I've looked a little bit more at DC. DC does work, and it is bigger. University of Maryland does work. Much bigger group out there, I guess. But to say that it's not worth the cost of $50,000, I just asked the question, what's the cost of a life? I have some residents that also chimed in and said, if it was in front of your house or mine, would it be worth it? I don't have anything else to offer on that. The chief did say he think the camera should come in first. That would be major. And I suggested that it shouldn't have to come out the city budget. I don't know when the last time we got a grant from DOJ or from whatever that group is up there in Annapolis that handle these kinds of things. So I would like to have at least some consensus on that we would want to have such a software, and if necessary, to authorize them looking for a grant to go after it, at least for a pilot for 1 to 2 years. That's my recommendation. Can I get some support on that or outright rejection? I don't care which one I get, but I want you to understand clearly, I think it's a valuable tool that this city ought to have. Mr. Netler, I saw that thing go up 3 times.
You know, Mayor, we rarely disagree.
No, but this night you're going to. Go ahead, do it.
You know, Mayor, I totally appreciate what you just said, but it's not going to stop somebody from getting shot.
It isn't.
You might find out who did the shooting, but it ain't going to save that life. It's already gone. And the folks that are going to be doing the shooting, they're not going to care about whether there's a signal thing on a telephone pole somewhere. They're going to do the shooting. So I hear what you're saying, and but I also know that our police department and our residents are very good about reporting gunshots. But once that gunshot's already hit somebody, that's too late. You've got to prevent it from even being shot. And this particular technology does not do that. It will help them.
Police officers, Brian.
And they can't do it either. So there's other things that need to be done for that issue. And I'll also say that DC and University of Maryland have very deep pockets that we don't have.
They do.
And I totally, as the acting chief said a couple weeks ago, loves technology that helps fight crime, and I do too. But I also got to say that cameras on every street corner, they're going to have a lot of civil liberties people. They don't even like the Ring cameras, watching them walk their dog. So if you're going to start, I mean, when we put those cameras up on Rhode Island Avenue years ago, we had people outraged that we were going to have cameras watching them walk down the street. Now, maybe times have changed, but I think we're going to have a problem if we're going to start putting cameras on every street corner. It's bad enough to have your doorbells. So it's a great idea. I just don't think it's going to stop somebody from getting shot.
Next person.
Mayor.
I think that's Scott.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, please take over until I get some water.
You got it, Mayor. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I hope you're not walking away, Mayor, and if you are, I hope you can still hear me, because I don't want you to miss me saying what I'm about to say. Mayor, I agree with every word that you just said, and I hope that you enjoy hearing that. Especially if we can get grant funding, then I do support doing this. I actually don't support the camera piece. Folks who attended the previous meetings will know that we don't have to also get the cameras. I think the $50,000 figure, in fact, that we were quoted was without cameras. It was just with the shot spotter system. And especially if we can get grant money, I think we should do it. If we can't get grant money, I personally am open to trying to find a way to fund this for the next fiscal year. And the only thing I'll add to what the mayor said is ShotSpotter also offers a demonstration. I think we should take them up on the offer to get the demonstration so that we can see how it works and just make sure we understand it better, even beyond the presentation that they already gave us. And then one thing and I'll repeat something I've said during earlier meetings, and I think that others have said as well, one thing that's appealing to me about this is it eliminates the need for there to be a disagreement between Brian and Mayor Miles about the effectiveness in one aspect, which, you know, we can then have side by side data, Brian, right? So if next fiscal year or next calendar year, the MRPD can be like, hey, we had residents report 12 shootings, but then ShotSpotter's like, well, we recorded 30. Then we're going to know whether or not our residents are in fact reporting all the shootings. And it works the other way as well. The MRPD could come back and say, residents called in 100 times to report shootings this year, but ShotSpotter says we only had 10. Then it gives us a better idea about how reliable and how accurate the citizens' reporting of gunshots is. So one of the things about this that I like the most isn't necessarily the crime prevention aspect, which is hard to see, and isn't the surveillance aspect, which I don't want. It's the accuracy of us knowing how many shootings are actually happening, because that's how we inform how to deploy our police department, where to allocate our resources, and where the trouble spots are. So I'm in support of the program, especially if we can get grant funding. If we can't, then I could go either way. We can try to find a way to make it work.
Did Mayor leave? Am I still here in charge? Okay. Before I speak then, Selena, do you have anything you want to say?
Mayor's here.
Yes. The part War One. Hi, Mayor. I was just gonna make a joke when Luke said that he's still in charge. I was like, that might be dangerous. But he's like, he gets very, very.
I'll enforce those 2-minute time limits on everybody.
Yeah, there you go. That was my 30 seconds. I will say from a person that, not my personal house, but 2 houses over mine, we got, somebody, their house got shot at in my same block. I could tell you, like, speaking from my experience, those shots were going to happen regardless. The shot spotter might have said this is what happened, but at the end of the day, I will have told you this is exactly what happened. We saw a bullet hole like in the house, so I don't need $50,000 to tell me that. To me, it is interesting to me to have the component of the cameras added to it, because if you don't have the component of the cameras added, if you decide to move forward with this, right? They leave and there's nowhere else for them to know where it went. You just see what the surrounding area is and whether police is going to be dispatched to. So I'm not in support of this. I feel like it will not stop it. I think that those 50,000 could be utilized in something else, where there is like programs locally for like youth or the community members to try to avoid, like actually get to the root of the problem, not necessarily like just when it comes to like, here it is, there's a shot, figure out whether it is or not. So to me, I don't find it as valuable as a tool. When it comes to it, I am in support of definitely going after grants to try to get it. The other thing is like, we are thinking of like potentially getting this 50,000 from the speed cameras. And in all reality, I feel a little bit not certain about doing that, although money is flowing into a certain level with them. But it's one of those things that tomorrow they could be gone and we'll be stuck with this $50,000, bill with nothing. So to me, it's not mainly just the money. It's like the reason why we want to get it. Would it be able to function? Would it be able to stop people from shooting? Would it be able to help us capture the person that even shot, right? Or utilize it. So I don't feel like none of that is going to be able to matter when it comes to the cameras. I will tell you this, the community members on the 35th area behind St. James, behind Glutz, if you want to center a little bit more, originally they didn't like the sound of the camera. Then it was my from what I understand, it's like got removed, it's back on, and they're like, we are never letting go of this camera. It has to be there. And when they even hear the clicker, they hear like, we know it's working. So it's making sure the people are aware of that as well. So they might not be very in tune with the individual cameras and maybe not overzealing of having cameras in every block, but at least some of the hard hitting spots, it gives them at least some comfort. That'll be footage for them to find the person and not just a bullet in the floor and figure out whether or not it has prints or not. So that's where I'm at. So I think like this is definitely something that's not going to help the problem we are seeing. I'd rather invest the money in programs that could, end some of the root of the cost, and some cameras to be able to find some supporting evidence if case is needed for any case.
Thank you very much. Luke, did you get a chance to go?
No, not yet, Mayor. Thanks for coming my way. I've gone back and forth on this subject, but I think that from my perspective, the biggest selling point ShotSpotter came here was that it could identify, where the car was driving away. And then when we talked about them more, it turned out, well, that's only if the system is connected to your cameras, and we don't have enough cameras. So all it will tell you is whether shots were fired, and it may or may not get down to within 100 yards or something like that, or 10 yards. Or there was some discrepancy there. I know other towns have reported it not being as accurate as they claim. But the question is, what is that value of knowing where those shots come from? And what is the value of spending $50,000 on other policing efforts? And I think that $50,000 can get better spent on other policing efforts. And I think we can try to get grant money for $50,000 for a better use of funds for our police department. And I think cameras are a part of the solution. I don't think it's all of the solution, but I think it is a part of it. I think that when you see a camera on your street camera, that might actually stop you from firing a gun because they know that that camera can capture your license plate, and they may try to go somewhere else before firing a gun. So I think it does help more in crime prevention than shot spotter. I also think that the benefit of shot spotter, of knowing where your shots are fired, has a lot more value to a city like Washington, D.C., where you've got thousands of police officers and you've got to determine, all right, how am I going to staff my police department? Am I going to staff more people in this ward or this precinct or wherever? We don't have that issue because of the size of our force and who's on duty at any given time. And so I don't know that the value is as high to a city as us. But I don't discount that there is value in knowing whether there was a shot or a firework. But I don't think we're so off the mark that it's worth spending money here, or even seeking grant money for $50,000. I think that we could find better use of our grant money for the police department. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. I think that item is not off the agenda permanently until someone brings it back up. We have 3.
May I make a comment, please?
Oh, please.
So I think, what would prevent so let's take the Bunker Hill Road issue at 35th, because we know we've had a problem there. I mean, I would be totally in support of spending money of having overtime for the police patrol cars with their lights, on flash, driving down that area. I think we're kind of doing that already, because then whoever the shooter is going to see that there's a police officer with their flashing light in that area, and that will prevent it. They're not going to know whether there's a camera there or not, but having the patrol car with their lights on, that is a deterrent, and I could support that.
But I think they're already supposed to be doing that. And if they're not, then it's just a matter of us directing them to do so. So back to my comment just before you spoke. It's been on the agenda twice. We've had a presentation. 3 of my council members feel that this is not the way to go. My acting chief of police thinks it's not the way to go. I think it is. Scott thinks it is, but maybe it's not the time. I know we've been here before where we brought up issues and they weren't the time, and later they came back and actually ticked me off because somebody else got it through and I didn't. I'm good with that. So let's keep this show moving. That brings us to the end of our agenda. And unless there's some other things that must be said, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to, if it's not too late, because I know that's not debatable. I wanted to make a second comment on ShotSpotter as well.
I'll withdraw my motion.
You didn't get a second. You don't have to withdraw.
I said second. I withdraw.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then the second I need to take it too.
Thank you both.
I said I withdraw it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for withdrawing. I promise that I'll be brief. I just wanted to reiterate that my understanding of this is that of ShotSpotter is not that it's not primarily a crime prevention tool. Although that's an ancillary feature, it can help with solving. So it's not going to prevent a shooting. It's alerting the police quickly that one happened, and potentially, whether we have cameras or not, sending police officers there and or adding camera footage as a way for them to have a better chance of solving the crime. I'm all for getting to the root of the problem, and I don't suggest that ShotSpotter would do that. But this technology will help us understand the problem more accurately. With all due respect to Luke, just to push back a teeny bit, I think it's great that you think we're accurate on how many shootings are happening, but we don't actually know. My whole point is, this will help us know. And if we do this for a year and we can find a grant to get $50,000 and we pay for this service for a year, and at the end of the year, you can come back to me and be like, see, Scott Cecil, 50 reportings were shooted and ShotSpotter says 50 shootings happened, then we'll know that what you think is right. But right now, you're just guessing, with all due respect. So I just wanted to make those points. And, I'm not saying $50,000 is an insignificant amount of money, but it's not enough to pay a police officer for a year. And I don't think it's probably, I would need to, I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I don't imagine it amounts to that many overtime hours either. As Mayor Miles mentioned, both Chief Morgan and now Acting Chief Alston, they themselves are patrolling because they want to step up the patrols in the problem areas in the city. So as has been mentioned, that's already happening. But it's okay if we're outnumbered 2 to 3, that's fine. We can still look for some grant money on the side and maybe bring this back when the time is right. But I hope that we can continue to have more conversations about what each of us prioritizes in terms of law enforcement and crime prevention. Because at the work session last month, when I, broached the topic of capping the police budget, one of you said, I don't support 25%. I don't support any percent. And another one of you said, well, the MRPD budget used to be half the city budget. Sure, maybe it did, but if you don't actually support capping the police budget at anything, that means you would let it go all the way up to 100%, which I don't think any of us thinks makes sense. So I would just say that the difference between me and the four of you is that I've given a number and nobody else has. So if you're going to say I am or am not for this or that, I think you should have to give a number too, and maybe you'll do that during the budget season.
All right. Before you leave, and I did open the door for the motion to adjourn, I forgot to mention a couple of things that I really do need to mention, and I should have asked for announcements or whatever. One of the things that I would like for Mount Rainier to start considering, and you have to indulge me, or please indulge me one way or the other, is a unified voice in talking about the actual distribution of the COVID vaccine, and how whether or not our residents are being adequately considered, and whether or not they are getting the shots equal to across the county. I received a phone call from the NAACP just before I came on this call, and they're calling every mayor and council in Prince George's County and the state regarding the fact that they're advertising that the vaccine is there and available. They're inviting people to register and be there, and yet there are no vaccines available for them. Excuse me. Many of our residents are not being allowed to get them, whatever the reason is. I would ask all of us, and we were talking about advocating with the feds, we need to advocate with the county and the state to make sure our residents are getting those vaccines. Not only that, it's been very difficult for residents to sign up for the vaccine. They got the registrations online, they got the 311, but it's not going through and people are not being able to register. And we need to get very proactive and aggressive in helping to make that happen. And so I'm asking each of you, because I got you right here, to please start making those phone calls. Please send those emails. And please, let's get our folks registered for the vaccine. Thank you so much.
Move that we adjourn.
Excuse me?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you so much. Can I get a second?
Second.
I didn't hear a second.
Second.
All right. See, you almost didn't get one. All those in favor of adjourning, let it be known by aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of the week.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Mayor,
night.
will you say